end up like that. So we're waiting for the panelists to be introduced so that we can save it in video format.
Можемо починати.
Можемо починати.
We can start. All right. So my name is Andrei Yanitsky. I'm the Ukrainian editor of IWPR, and I would like to introduce our today's honorary guests and to offer them to give the floor for greetings. So it's Ujihara Takaaki, First Secretary of the Embassy of Japan in Ukraine. You're welcome, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Uzihara, and I would like to welcome you all to the panel discussion on behalf of the Embassy of Japan in Ukraine. Thank you for joining us today for this important event on the safety of journalists and the issue of impunity for crimes against them. We are here to commemorate the International Day to end impunity for crimes against journalists, which is observed every year on 2nd of November. Unfortunately, journalists around the world face increasing threats to their lives. According to UNESCO, more than 70 journalists have been killed this year alone. And most of these crimes to go unsolved. Journalists are also subjected to intimidation, harassment, and other forms of violence, not to mention the life-threatening danger that the journalists in Ukraine face every day due to the war. Journalists in Ukraine risk their lives going to frontline regions to obtain information and take photos of the events. They place their lives in jeopardy to expose the lies and to show the world the truth. They pay high price to keep the world updated, to unite people and to bring peace. Japan is supporting journalists participating in the project Protecting the Front Lines, implemented by the Institute of War and Peace Reporting. We are pleased to have distinguished panel of speakers today who will offer their perspectives, knowledge, and suggestion on how to tackle the obstacles surrounding journalist safety and the battle against impunity. It is also our goal that this event will enlighten, inspire, and motivate you to support this important issue. We also hope that it will act as a memorial to journalists who have died or been injured while performing their jobs, as well as the reminder of our shared duty to stand up for and defend their rights. Today, I look forward to hearing more about your work today and to understand which topics you are investigating at this moment, as well as listening to your experiences within this project. Thank you very much.
Пані Тереза
Ms. Teresa
Бюро ЮНЕСКО.
Ms. Teresa Cherbacher, the project officer, UNESCO Kyiv desk.
So UNESCO is very, very happy to be working with the Institute for War and Peace Reporting on a third iteration of this project. So this is actually the third cohort of journalists that is investigating projects. I just want to explain that this is part of a project that is very generously funded by the government of Japan, which has three key outcomes. One is to support the safety of journalists and to provide emergency response following the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The second one is to support media viability in Ukraine. Many media outlets have been struggling financially and on different levels due to the war. And the third one is to support investigative and collaborative reporting, such as this project. So from the side of UNESCO, which is the UN agency with a mandate to promote safety of journalists and to fight against impunity for crimes against journalists, this is a project that's holistically trying to assist the Ukrainian media sector and foster safety of Ukrainian journalists. So I've been really delighted over the last couple of months to see the different types of projects and the different type of work that's been done as part of this. And I'm really looking forward to learn a little bit more about the current projects and to exchange on the issues, the challenges, the needs that Ukrainian journalists have. So yeah, I'm not going to make this very long. Thank you so much for having us, and we look forward to following the discussions today. Thank you.
And Ms. Katerina Galenko, the head of IWPR in Ukraine.
And I'm first going to thank generous support the people of Japan and UNESCO, because not many donors right now are supporting media outlets in Ukraine, and we always have to remember that the jobs that you are doing, the jobs that people in this room are doing, are not less important than all the other fights that we are currently fighting. And this shedding light on Ukrainian struggle helps Ukraine. So thank you very much. And I'm going to switch into Ukrainian for some organizational issues, if you don't mind. Доброго дня ще раз. Я Катя.
Good morning, anybody and everyone. My name is Katya. Just a couple of organizational remarks. For the time being, we would like to ask you not to broadcast this event live. And right upon its ending, there will be a publication by Ukraine Forum. For the time being, we are being recorded. Then a video will be published about this conference. So once again, I would like to ask you to keep your badges on for the titles. And unfortunately, there is an air raid alert in effect. As organizers, we have to emphasize that there is a shelter available right here. You can make your way down the hall and make your right. So it's up to you, and we support your choice one way or another. And we will let you know as soon as the situation changes. So for the time being, everything is all right. We would like to have a fruitful discussion today. Let's mind the timing. We would like to thank Andrei for his agreement to moderate it. And we wish everybody a fruitful day. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's mostly for the record and for those who will watch this in the record, because everybody who's present here, they know what's going on, but I will tell you a little bit more. So UNESCO, with the support of the people of Japan, in coordination with Institute for War and Peace Reporting, for the third time have supported the investigation of violation of rights against journalists, or investigation of crimes against journalists, because what's usually supported is the embezzlement of funds or study of war crimes. It's all very important, but we understand that without freedom of speech, without having journalists working freely, no one is going to find out about either embezzlement or war crimes of the Russians. This is why the protection of the journalists is quite an important component of democracy. It's an important element of the system which operates in the proper way. We had a third iteration of training of journalists and investigations, and we were able to identify the patterns of the violations of rights of journalists. They unfortunately still exist in Ukraine, and today we would like to present the most characteristic cases. And for this purpose, I would like the journalists from Frontline journalists to present their projects, to cover the threats faced by Ukrainian journalists. And the first one will be Vladislav Bodnar. Mr. Vladislav, please come here. Our timing is 10 minutes max. We will have 10 addresses, or 3 addresses, 10 minutes each. There is a clicker on the desk. So can you please take the microphone, so it's not only us who hears you, but also you're being heard in the record and for the interpreters. Thank you. So my topic is the violation of journalist rights in Vinnytsia region. So we've divided this topic into 2 parts. I thought it will be one material, but then we've decided to segregate city from their regions. So the way we were studying it, we decided to take such instrument as information request application. So we'll see how it's being reported. So first is the map of shelters in Vinnytsia region. Why specifically the shelters? Because we had to submit the request to all of the territorial communities. We have 53 of them, so we've decided to pick that topic. We've decided why not shelters. I was making a report on Vinnytsia, so this topic is familiar to me. So we've taken the map of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, the map of shelters that was available throughout Ukraine. That was the only map available in Ukraine before the full-scale invasion, but the problem was that all of the shelters were just on papers. They existed since Soviet era, and they were supposed to save people in case of nuclear strike. In case a nuclear missile destroys everything, those people were supposed to survive at their manufacturing facilities. Well, they had to survive not because they just wanted to keep the people, but it's just they had to have somebody to keep working on those manufacturing facilities. So out of 63, we were able to find 53 shelters in Vinnytsia region. We've sent the requests to all of them. 15 of them responded to me, and they responded mostly from the municipal areas. So it was municipality of more than 10,000 inhabitants who responded. If it's a community of a couple of villages, well, if I run out of time, you please let me know. So 10 of them did not respond at all. I've submitted repeated requests to those same communities, and out of them, those who did not respond were 3, and then out of the 10 who did not respond for the second time, that were 2 of them. So talking about the territorial communities, let me go through them quite quickly. There is a number of the ways we divide them. So first, it's a basic shelters. Well, counter-rocket shelters, and counter-rocket shelters are just like a basic shelter, but they just don't let the ionizing radiation through. Well, Vladislav, I understand that you immersed in this topic, but talking about the protection of rights of journalists, out of 53 entities who were able to respond, 5 of them never responded. Well, first 10 of them did not respond, but 15 provided incomplete information. So this is why I've submitted the repeated request, and out of those 15 who ignored me, 3 of them responded and did not respond, and then out of 10 who ignored me, only 2 were the ones who never responded. So again, we were studying this topic. Well, okay, I will cease talking about the shelters. Yes, shelters were just an example. So our main topic is our main goal is to describe that if the local government doesn't respond to the journalist, it results in the fact that the audience of those journalists does not know where to hide from Russian missiles, and there is a direct connection between the request for information and human lives. I mean, it doesn't seem so important first, like access to the information is not so vital, but on this example, we do demonstrate that it is vital, and we can ensure people's lives are saved in this way. So let's probably proceed to the second example. What was the second report about? Well, what I just wanted to emphasize, one territorial community, they hide their email on the website, and I was thinking why. It's like everything, all the contacts are available, and I was making fun of them, so they hide their email to make sure that Putin cannot contact them, so it's the violation of the law. Well, then another case was about Vinnytsia. A number of requests submitted by the journalists, so now it's about 70, and second it's a news weekly, RIA. They submitted 10 requests. Why do I focus my attention on that? Because the violation of the rights of the journalists in Vinnytsia, well, it couldn't happen because there is almost no journalism in Vinnytsia region. So you mean the journalists themselves, they don't use those tools? Yeah, it's us there. It's us who work there, and then RIA and the rest of them are copy-paters, so they don't really need anything. Well, I skipped it accidentally. Give me a sec here. It's just that I had comments there. It's not so important, but anyway, let me cover it real quick. I was able to find 7 journalists who responded to me. It was only a couple of them who did not respond to any of my requests. There were 10 requests, and they say it was all right, but when there was a strike on the officers' building on the July 22nd, he was not let in there, but the pro-governments me were allowed to make reports from there, but for them the access was restricted. They were just trying to find out how do the utility services respond to their requests. So they were asking just a regular question: what is the salary of the heads of the utility service companies? We've sent 34 requests, got 27 responses. In the rest of the cases, there were required some additional documents, signatures, and stuff like that. Well, and from about the rest of the topics, we can judge from the context of the articles. Well, yeah, so the second topic was about the utility service companies and spending of the taxpayer funds. However, utility service companies very frequently try to say that we don't live at the expense of the state. So who's this winner? Oh, this is the person with the highest salary. So his salary amounts to the 6 salaries of the trolley bus drivers. And the last remark, it's a record 130 applications were submitted within this project, and QR codes for the reference in the end. And another remark, Venice Municipal Council started providing responses on a regular basis after we trained them, but in the year 16-17, thanks to the complaints to the courts, we trained them and they respond to everybody now. That's it for me.
Питання.
Dear friends, you can ask questions. So the first one who will succeed, the one can actually ask the question. If not, then in the second part we will discuss all of that. Yeah, Ms. Oksana? Just very briefly. Yeah, I have a question. You've been mentioning that there were some secondary requests. I would like to ask, how did it work? Do these secondary requests work, and what is the efficiency when these secondary requests are submitted? Well, I would say that, yeah, it does work, and out of 10 that I mentioned, some did not respond at all, and I sent some requests on Saturday and Sunday, and I got the response from one of the communities I received in 1 hour as soon as their working day started. It was like, oh, they were ignoring. Okay, so it's the, again, it came repeatedly, so we have to answer. And yeah, it does work. So if they did not respond the first time, or they ignored, or whatever, then the secondary request might help. It's not fiction. Thank you very much, Vladislav, for your presentation. I would like to mention one more time, journalists, please use the request and assessing information, because truth is on your side. If not, you can ask again. If they don't answer, you can even go to court, you know, and lawyers. There are young lawyers who are ready to help you, and we have Maya Holub with the second presentation. Tell us, please, what did you study? What are the interesting diagrams that we see? Yep. Vladislav, didn't you take away the clicker? Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Holub. I am working in the Institute of Mass Information, and I am also working as a journalist and freelancer. I would like to tell you first briefly about my experience and about my topic. I took the topic about how, what kind of punishment was there for the journalists, or what kind of violations were there in the latest 5 years. I would like to say that the topic of standing on the way of journalists' activities, it's not just a topic for me. That's actually part of my life, because since 2017, I've been working in the Institute of Mass Information, and I am studying this topic. I am monitoring on Volyn Oblast all the violations that are taking place, and in our Institute of Mass Information, we have barometer of the freedom of speech, and there we are just noting down the things that happened all over Ukraine. And actually, I would like also to briefly tell you about my experience, and then we will switch to the topic. Actually, in 2014, I felt what journalist solidarity is. Actually, it's back then, during the times of Maidan, and the police didn't want to let me visit the event to the head of Volyn Oblast administration. So the police, they were standing in a row, and they didn't let me go there. After that, I started recording that to the video. Like, I started the video recording, and no matter how weird it sounds, but the police violated my rights back then. And afterwards, I called the police to address the police. However, for 1 hour, no one was coming. No one came eventually. However, after that, some threats started. I started receiving the calls like, what do I think to myself? We are not living in Europe. So, you know, the unknown numbers calling. And there were also different threats. When I said that I am recording everything, like I do the audio recording, these discussions stopped. However, I remember that back in 2014, there was always also, so to say, like illegal penetration to our office, because then I was working in the agency of investigation, and somebody broke our lock. And that happened after the case when the police didn't let me go to Volyn administration. After the case, I realized what journalist support is, how important it is, and that being public, sometimes it can just defend you. So you have to fight for your rights, and you don't have to close your eyes even for some minimal violations. I would also like to add that at the time when there was actually the attack to the office, when no one was there, I just recall that it was on that day that the unknown came to the office of the fourth power in Lutsk. I was making making a story, and I thought, like, should I go to the office or should I go home? And something like I just, my intuition told me to go home and not to the office, because I can't even imagine what would have happened if I would have been in the office and they would have come. Yeah, I come back to the topic. Yeah, now we have less time. Yeah, but I wanted to mention that indeed the journalists, yeah, it's like personal. Yeah. Actually, I took the period since 2018 to 2023 on various violations. And at first, I sent requests to the police, 5 different requests. Unfortunately, I didn't get the answer, but these years. Then I communicated, I asked the lawyers for advice, and they advised me, and also my colleague Yuri Horbach, to send 1 request. And after that, I received the answer. Actually, during the previous years, there were much more violations, now a bit less. However, still not all of the crimes against the journalist are investigated as they should be investigated. Yeah, let us try to do some kind of analytical story, do we observe some kind of tendency? And you say that during the last years, we used to have more attacks to journalists. Why so? That is the first question. We remember that it was like the year of, one of the years were the year of elections in Ukraine. However, like 2021, for example, why do we have such a big number there? And we remember that 2023, it's not a full year. Yeah, it's still, this is still our year. The year is going on. However, I think that less violations due to the fact that there was pandemics and also the war impacted, because now mainly the crimes that we are documenting and Russia is committing that against the journalists. As for the violations, we can see that based on the applications mentioned, so violations in all the 5 years, 28 criminal procedures were registered. Most of those, the article of standing on the way of journalist activities. Since 2018 till 2023, 5 cases were brought to the court. This is the information. So like dozens of violations, like even if we sum up then hundreds and only 5 came to court. These are some criminal cases. And how many sentences were there in the court? Are there like punished people? Yeah, there are. And I would like to draw one example. That happened in 2021, and the journalist from Volyn, Lyudmila Yehorska, she came to the village council and she wanted to get some answers, and the ex-worker, Georgi Vanessa, started like beating her. She recorded the video, it's very good that she did so, because she like documented this attack, and the court gave him a sentence like 5 years for this attack. And there were some additional issues because he was like trying to steal like the money from the budget and so on. However, as far as I know, even though he was assigned with a punishment like 5 years, however, he submitted the appeal on the 1st of November, and there was already the trial, and Stefanesa, he did not come for the trial. And he said that he caught a cold. And actually there will be, again, that will happen soon, like in December. This topic is under my control. I will also follow this because this is a very loud case. And the guilty people should be punished. There was one more case about, like, the car of the ex-journalist, Katerina, and she was also the insider. Her car, some bad people tried to put her car on fire, and that happened near Lutsk. She's living there, and the most scary thing is that in the morning she saw, together with her daughter, how her car is burning. And unfortunately, still, the police did not find the guilty and didn't find who did it, even though the journalist thought that it's due to her professional activity, and the police said that this case is on their control because this is due to the fact that she's a journalist. However, no one was found yet. Yeah, we were publishing these studies on the 2nd of November of the World Day of the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. However, how do you think these 28 cases in 2018, these cases were brought to court and people were punished? What about 2019, 2020, and further years? Were the violations as massive? Well, actually, absence of punishment promotes some new things, and I think that each violation against a journalist should be punished, because there is no like some mild steps, or there is no opportunity to say that some should be punished and some shouldn't, because indeed, if we are bringing to responsibility everyone, as it is actually required, then I think that journalists would be able to work in a more easy manner, so to say, because even from our materials you can read that even in a church you can become, you can have certain attacks in the church of the, like unfortunately in Volyn there were such cases when journalists come to church and they say like, get away from here, why did you come here, and so on and so forth, or they don't want to let the person go into the church. So unfortunately, these cases happen. Thank you very much. We will see each other still in the second part because you have your speech there as well. Now I would like to invite Alyona Malichenko to tell about her study. Ms. Alyona, please mention what region are we talking about, and we would like to show also the broad geography of violation of journalist rights. We had Vinnytsia Oblast, we had Volyn Oblast, that is the center and the western part of Ukraine, you know. So, Ms. Alyona, what you will tell us about. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyona Malichenko. I represent Center for Journalist Investigations of Poltava region, Media Proof. We were studying information about in Poltava region, and we were investigating the salaries in the communities. It was like 60 communities in our oblast and 60 primary requests correspondingly. From the very beginning, we did not have very ambitious goal to cover all the communities because our media back then existed just for 2 months. And we took the 4 biggest cities and we sent the requests. We were asking them about humanitarian aid, salaries, and so on and so forth. And for the first time, they refused to give us the information. We heard, like, these are the obstacles we cannot cope with. Like, why they don't give us the information. We decided, like, okay, full-scale war, maybe this is why they cannot provide us with this information. We waited for a few months and we sent the request to all the cities in our oblast. And again, half of them answered that they cannot provide us with the data because of these obstacles and even the threat to the safety. Because some answered that the information about the salaries, it's threatening not only to those whom we are asking about, but also it's threatening the members of their families and so on and so forth. So we decided that it's kind of a tendency because they are working as they should the full day, and we decided to cover all the communities. We sent 60 requests. I dare say that we had a positive result because 63% provided us the answers in legal terms. I dare say some with a delay of like 1 week. However, they still provided us with the information. However, others did not. And we had to write approximately 30 secondary requests. And they were providing us with the answer after the secondary request, like 4 communities, for example. After we reminded them of that, they provided us with the answer. One community, like we used the form on their website, we filled that in, and they answered us. This happened. 2 communities were asking for a signature so that we have digital signature, even though it's illegal refusal. However, we signed that, and then they sent us the data. 10 more. We were appealing in the regional representative Dmytro Lubinets, and they also provided us with the data. So this is efficient mechanism. At first, it didn't work. We were sending letters, and like regional did not answer us, like regional councils, and then they were answering, and it became the good tool because they were reacting, and it was clearly seen that it's not the full scale that is a reason. That was like they were just ignoring us. The reason why they were not giving some information to us, first of all, those were obstacles again, as they mentioned. However, they were just ignoring us, and in some cases they provided answer the next day after we submitted the answer, and it was not because of the obstacles or something like that. Here I would like to stop on the two communities. Most interesting cases we faced that for the first time. First, Novosenchara community, they sent us the bill, or like the invoice. They said, if you pay us 2,600 hryvnias for 71 page, they said that they need to scan and print out the pages that they will send us. We came with the appeal with the help of the letter from the Platform for Human Rights. We came with the appeal to with a claim to regional representative, and they said that no, it's legal, you have to pay because the information is not of the interest of the society. We disagreed, and we decided to go to the court. And while we were preparing our claim, the lawyer again came one more time to Dmytro Lubinets this time, and they said that, yeah, it is of the interest, like in the interest of the society, and they sent us the letter that I'm asking you to consider my previous letter as a mistake, and then we received the letter that, sorry, we won't do that anymore. So it's like they recognized their mistake and their fault. And then one more village council, we decided, like before claiming, we decided to send the secondary request. So we sent the letter, and from Google it comes like, the letter did not come to the receiver. And then it says, like, this village council put you into the blacklist. So they banned us. And that was the first time when we asked them. We did not communicate anymore. So after we asked them what salaries you receive, they just put us into the blacklist. You can't see well the statistics here. However, we have like 2 regions that were answering well, and no claims were there. However, Poltava and Kremenchuk regions, they were the hottest ones, and we didn't get the information there. We also, according to the advice of Ms. Oksana Semenyuk, we were studying how open the data are on their websites, because after the beginning of war, a lot of data disappeared from the websites of the communities, and you couldn't even learn what is the name of the head of the community, because it's a threat for national safety, you know. And my colleague monitored all the websites, and she just saw whether they returned, so to say, to the beginning of what they used to have. And it turned out that actually most, also like positive tendency, that most of them were publishing some decisions and so on.
Well, to summarize it, 60 communities where we sent our requests to, we got 44 responses, and we think that it's quite a positive result. Out of those 16 left, only 4 were such from which we were not able to get, well, there were 6 of them, but after the publication, 2 more added their responses. Well, to summarize it, the reform of decentralization, the new administrative division of Ukraine, it was implemented relatively recently, and probably some of the communities somewhere in the depth of Ukraine, they never face such thing as a journalist request. Did you ever face such a situation when they say you are the first journalist to ever submit a journalist request to us? So, or they do work with such a tool? Well, I don't think that they don't work, but there was one community not so far away from Kremenchuk. They told us, do you want us to bring those details to your office if you need them with the prints and with the stamps and signatures? We said, no, it's okay, we don't care about the signatures, we just need the information. The electronic mail would be sufficient. But did you feel any threat, as they were saying, like, do you want us to come to your place? Well, thank you, Alona. Next panelist is Victoria Nazaruk. Please tell us about your research. Let me comment on what Alona was said. It's central Ukraine too. We see that Vinnytsia region and Poltava region, they have the same stories. Not all of their community governments are ready to work with the journalists, ready to respond to them, and in fact they conceal the information about the disposal of the taxpayer funds, so it may be an indicator of corruption going on there. Ms. Victoria, the floor is yours. Well, unfortunately, I don't have a presentation, so let me just start with my short story. Basically, why me and my colleague, it was two of us working on the investigation of violation of journalists' rights, specifically within our editorial, and I represent such a platform as Rayon in UA, a network of Ukrainian websites, and I'm an editor of the topic of education, and my colleague is from Rivne, and in the Rivne website this article was published about the violation of journalists' rights. So our story started before we started working with the media sphere. Before that, I was working for a long time in a university, and somehow it just happened so that each university has their difference in their curricula for the students. So I was working with the Ostrich Academy, and for a long time the legal matters related to work with the media were poorly covered, because nobody wants actually to work as a professor for that salary, and we were not able to find a competent person who could explain it all to the students during their study, what can and cannot be done. And when our students were submitting the information requests, they were addressing them to the university, and the directors were calling them to the carpet, so to say. This is how I ended up in professional journalism. So our work with a colleague started with her story, and this story was in the beginning of this text about Miss Maria having found information in one of the Odessa site about the death of a military during battle operations. So Maria Martinuk, apart from being the chief editor-in-chief of Rayon Rivne, she is a fact-checker, and as a fact-checker she started verifying that information. She decided either to confirm or debunk it, and she sent the request to the Operational Command South, because we didn't have this information available to us. Odessa websites were writing about that case, so Operational Command never responded. She submitted a repeated request, and then when she got no response again, she started using personal contacts, and then we started adding the personal stories of our students. They started writing their personal stories in their personal media, social media pages, because some of them didn't have an experience of submitting requests, or they were just reporting it orally that they are never responded upon their request for information. And this is how this project started. I started talking to my graduates, and they started telling their stories to me. First, they they were telling their stories, but then 3 of them said, like, no, don't publish our stories because it will result in the fact that we just lose a personal contact with the press officers. We are not going to be able to cover those topics anymore, so we are not ready to stand for our rights. So it all boiled down to the facts when we had to change the names, to use the pseudonyms, but in our region we started facing the fact that people are not ready to stand for their rights. And as a professor, I would relate it to the absence of relevant skills and knowledge, and their unreadiness to work with this sensitive topic. And for me, it's the first project I'm involved in, because previously I was writing about education, I was writing about school and university life, what's going on there. But here I want to thank the organizers for availing myself and others of this opportunity to cover such important issues, because in our region, specifically in Rivne, there's only one journalist investigation agency, the Fourth Authority, that reposted that material after we posted on our website. They were the only ones who supported us, because they also had the cases when their activities were impeded. Ms. Maya mentioned that again, and I think that through such solidarity projects, through journalist community, we can cover these matters. And I hope that in the community of my graduates something is about to change and they will be more proactive in standing for their rights. Ms. Victoria, just one question. When you were preparing this material, I know there were journalists who communicated with you, and then they said they don't want their stories to be published. Why, in your opinion, they're not ready to stand for their rights? Why they're not ready to talk about the violation of their rights? Even when we talk about some brutal things, what are they afraid of? So one of those stories is a story of my graduate who said that I don't want to move to Kyiv because in Kyiv the journalist community is more powerful, but in Rivne, I'm alone here, and even when we have any support actions, support activities in support of journalists, maybe some just still fear to talk about it because they don't have this solidarity. But do you think that if this solidarity is in place and the journalists claim their rights, that they will be intimidated or obstructed or refused in any right to profession, in any access to information? So in your opinion, how serious is the threat on the local level? Well, on the instance of this investigative agency, Fourth Authority, well, they were intimidated, there were threats of attack of their offices. So I think that they are ready to stand for their rights, and those people that those people who we were talking about, my graduates, they are just making their baby steps in this profession. But the more we cover this topic, the more changes happen, in my opinion. Thank you very much, Ms. Victoria. Let's proceed to Ms. Lina Romanchenko. Ms. Lina, the floor is yours. If you have any presentation, let's switch to it. It should be on already. So this one's yours. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lina. I'm a journalist of a Kremenchuk newspaper. And I would like to start with this tendency existing in media today to publish the information promptly. Something happened, an event happened, or some problem has arisen in the society, and the media compete to have this information posted the first, who will be quicker, and so on and so forth. But every information requires, every piece of information requires a comment that would verify that there is an expert who can comment, there is a source, and so on. And when you work with the relevant media which posts the news promptly, and you try to find the sources, you try to address the government, you feel yourself a little bit lost, because many pro-government utility service companies and operatives and the government themselves, they act as if you create some obstacles in their activity, if you impede them, if you distract them, or you cover the information in improper way, or you ask too many questions. And at the same time, another part of the media, for example, those belonging to utility service companies, they post the information that they get from unknown sources very quickly. They attend all the events with the local governments, with the mayors, and after I attended that training, I stopped feeling lost, because I realized that the information that we submit requests for, we have a right to that. That's quite proportional in the way that the government officials work. And I built such a plan of my work, and I described it as a selective publicity, or why the mayor's office of Kremenchuk segregates journalists to friends and foes. And the first topic I would like to touch upon is that all of those organizations that I've mentioned, they reference the martial law. That's the first thing. If there are any problems, they say it's a martial law, we cannot talk about it, we cannot disclose this information, and so on. And first of all, it's about the restriction for the journalists to be present on the sessions. The draft resolutions are not being published, and since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the utility service TV was present there during the sessions, but they never published the information, and only after we submitted requests from our editor-in-chief and the journalist for the Commissioner for Journalist Rights, after the request to the mayor, it's only then that they started publishing and covering some questions from the municipal council, but they didn't show the videos of the sessions themselves. And here on this graph we can see the cities who started allowing the journalists to the sessions. Kremenchuk started doing this only on the 28th of July 2023. Only few of the journalists were allowed to attend the session of the municipal council, and they only referenced it to the fact that the coronavirus restrictions were lifted, and so we were among the last ones. Let me just finish it real quick. But it was not an end of it, because after the information request, they tell you you're supposed to submit the official written request. Everything is being postponed or forwarded to other departments, and I assume that it's not only done by those departments themselves, but it's mostly done by the legal department, who roughly know how to properly read those information requests. So you have to submit them in a very strictly formulated manner, because otherwise you get a postponement of 20 working days and you're not able to submit the information request in a prompt way. So talking about other requests, the situation is even more complicated, because the independent media that are not very favored by the government, the local governments, the utility service companies, municipal governments, they say just submit another type of request. And this is what I've learned from the training, that you are supposed to submit a request in compliance with this specific form. Well, an unwillingness, mayor's unwillingness to respond, he just disappeared from the view of the journalists during the war. He did not visit local schools. Back then the schools were not even outfitted with the shelters. And to the best of my understanding, he was trying to calm down the teachers and the directors that the study process is not going to resume, but the pro-government TV companies, TV and broadcasting companies were present there, who were probably submitting the requests in that proper way. So as Oksana mentioned, there shouldn't be such a thing as selectiveness among the journalists. If some of them are invited, all of them should be invited. Well, probably it may be related to absence of accreditation or something like that, but otherwise it would be a violation of journalist rights. So even the accreditation should not be a filter, right? Well, accredited journalists may get some bonuses, may be entitled to some bonuses as a seating place or more comfortable conditions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if a journalist is not accredited, they cannot physically enter the session hall. They shouldn't have access to the information. Maybe local governments should take care of broadcasting the sessions in the halls or print out the results of the sessions, results of the voting. So it's no reason for depriving the journalists of access to information. Yes, and as a result, a small feature we've invented in consultations with you, we've decided to try to understand why the pro-government broadcasting companies get information so easily, and we have to run around asking for that information. So I've submitted requests to the municipal council so that they give us the number of requests submitted by the pro-government broadcasting company starting from the beginning of the year. And in the same way, I've requested the list of such requests, electronic copies of such requests, so that they're sent to us and the municipal council. And they responded that they cannot provide any such information because no such requests were documented, which means that basically they never received any such things because their lawyers are real good, that they would not be able to respond it in such a way in case those requests do exist. So what I'm trying to say, once again, I want to thank your training because in my opinion, a successful project is when you understand it yourself and you are satisfied by it yourself, and it results in some tangible benefit or advantage for you. And as we printed those articles, you know, those departments, you know, when we call to them, they say, we have a meeting going on, we cannot respond to you right now. This is what we got from the ambulance, from the emergency service. And after this publication emerged, they started responding better. They started responding through the messengers, through Viber, a specialist of Department of Social Protection, for example. So the benefit of such training is that even if we are ignored, they still read us. And when we state that our rights exist, they also know that we are entitled for some rights. So thank you very much for your educational work, your education for the local government. We have to continue this work even for the new generations of the journalists to come. If we may ask Elena Savchuk to the floor to have Ms. Alena will tell us about the journalism in the occupied territories, specifically in the temporarily occupied Crimea, which is not under the control of Ukrainian government since 2014.
Hi everyone, my name is Elena Savchuk. I am the reporter. I work with big formats and long-term projects. And I would like to tell a bit about my competence in the topic. I've been working in the Crimea, which was occupied for 3 years as a reporter since 2016 till 2018. Before the full-scale invasion, even I was forbidden to come to the Crimea because of the security service of Russian Federation. I know what it is. I know people who are working there, and the idea of the text and the participation in the project belongs to my colleague who is currently living and working in the Crimea, and actually due to safety reasons we cannot mention any data about her. However, I would like to mention that her input into this is much bigger as of now. As a reporter, it is important for me to work in the fields, and after I had no opportunity to work in the Crimea, I'm writing much less about that, and this is an opportunity, you know, to return to the topic. We wanted to tell about the journalists in the Crimea, in particular about the journalism in the Crimea, because we don't have professional journalism there anymore. However, there are civil journalists, and what is happening to them there, it was a catastrophe even before the full-scale invasion, and now that's a double catastrophe, you know, because it's very logical that the attention and the focus just switched a bit, and we don't talk much about the Crimea. And if we are, then it more in the context of explosions in Sevastopol or other things. So this is the opportunity to return them a bit into the information field. When my colleague and I decided that we want to cover this topic, it was important for us to understand whom we are going to write that for. And as far as we have very big experience of work in this topic, and we have relevant education. I have also like law education, and a friend of mine, she is like 9 years in all of that, so she's very experienced. It was important for us to find the audience that can be new for the topic, and to tell all of that in a light format. That is, we were choosing the characters who would present the maximal spectrum of all the political captives who are there in the field of journalism, and we chose like 4 characters who are different in their gender, national belonging, different in the level of professionality in journalism. It was very important for us as well, so that their stories or parts of their stories represent some certain aspects that, like the behavior patterns of special services in the Crimea. I would like to draw an example because it's very hard to mention that in general. Irina Danilovich is one of our characters. She is a journalist and her education is a nurse. She was arrested and now she's been judged for hiding the explosives, but they gave her the explosives and they tried to say that they were torturing her and she could survive, and all they could do that they just put the explosives into her bag, and they didn't even call the reasons why they did it. It's just like illegally she is having that. She's a woman, she's Ukrainian. We also chose Irina because her health suffered much in there, and it's a classical story that the political journalists who are like arrested, they suffer, their health suffers. Like it might happen that they lose their eyesight or something like that, and like that was the first time story that the political captives, they died in the jail there. And it was also very important to explain that this systemic pressing, it's not only about criminal cases, but also about how people are threatened, people who want to tell about what is happening in the Crimea, because they are, like beforehand, they are trying to scare them not to participate in any events and or like some protests that are impossible in general, how they are being arrested next to the courts just in order not to come to the court, to the trial. How civil journalists first are having a lot of administrative cases, like for example, they are giving big fines, and then in addition to administrative arrest, they are giving them like 10, 14 days. It's like the last warning before the criminal case starts against them. So in all these stories, it was very important to put all the puzzles together so that we do not overwhelm our audience with some general issues, but we can tell about what is happening in the Crimea. And what is important is that I have a co-author, because a colleague of mine has the opportunity to go to the trials, and she can be there in place, and I can step aside from the point of view of my experience, and being like far from there, I can just process the idea. Also very important aspect, even when we are talking about Ukraine to the Ukrainian audience about the Crimea, all of us and our audience in general understands what Crimean problems are, or Crimean persecution is. So we have either to have the certain source or document or the claim of certain authority and so on. So we took as much as possible documents, audios, comments, so that everything we are talking about, it doesn't just sound well, but it has the basis it is built on. And I think that I would like to mention that we send material with a lot of documents and the court cases. We did not add that to the materials. That was the whole Ukrainian website or site Express, and it has big coverage and it received big interest from the readers, and we did not attach the materials because maybe there are some personal data, or still these are documents of the occupation authorities, and we won't like to legitimate them even in such a way. Yeah, actually we sent that just in order to characterize also for the editor, so that the editor understands what we were working with and how we were evidencing certain statements of ours. Now, of course, we don't take any comments. I mean, because even we don't take any comments from the other side. However, even if we would have been able to do that, I doubt that we would have done that. But before the full-scale invasion, I had a very clear position. If we can get the information, if we could get the information, then we got the information. And you can Google later on if you want to, but the thing is that the person was put to the pre-trial detention center with such a lot of illnesses that it was just hard for him to live, and actually, if at the time with my colleague, Taras Ibrahimov, we were somehow trying to find information about the topic, we were trying to put his case on the surface a few times per week to give some news. And I remember that there was a contact with the ombudsman of occupation authorities of Crimea, so to get some information. And the only Crimean Tatar, Yadra Bakimov, who was exchanged when Sintsov and the navies were returned, and if not Taras, who was working on this topic all the time via request to occupational bodies, I don't know whether Mr. Bakirov would have survived. You say that there are no professional journalists left, only Russian propaganda works there. It is clear that all the independent journalists were forced to leave back in 2014, but you said civil journalists. Who are those, and how are they different from professional journalists who were starting to be journalists, or they work full-time? Honestly speaking, after 9 years of their work, I don't see big difference, except for that they don't get money for their work. That's it. Because indeed I'm working with Crimean Solidarity, that is the union, actually is the only source of the adequate information from the Crimea right now. And in the framework of this interaction, I was writing, I was making trainings for them on stories, and my colleague was making trainings on photography, Taras Ibrahimov, working for Suspilne also. So they want to study, and they are catching up with us, and many people who are writing news from there, they are much more professional than those who are working in professional editorial houses. So these are just ordinary people who used to work who used to work in the kindergartens, doctors in the hospitals. Yeah, gas station, construction, just men who are trying to work somewhere, if that's possible, because again, they don't warn when they are going to arrest people and so on. Why did they decide to make this step into the profession of a journalist, as a matter of fact? Because they used to work on they were repairing cars, for example. And actually, they could have sat still, not to put themselves to risk, not to have a bad relationship with the occupational authorities, and to be in the internal immigration. what is happening to those people? Why do they want to tell to others what is happening in the occupation? You know, I think that it's a very complex topic, and I think we can talk about that for a really long time. To be brief, Crimean Tatars is a community of incredible level of solidarity, and there is not a lot of them there. And it seems to me that now it's impossible to find a family that where someone is not persecuted, or where someone hasn't been put to the pre-trial detention center or the jail. And Russian media don't speak about that. Well, there were and are some kind of oppositional media who are trying or making attempts to talk about that. But I think that all those ideas, when they ruined, like with a full-scale invasion, I think that now to hope for the fact that you can just reach to the Russian audience and something will change, I don't believe that we should work for a Russian audience. We are working mostly for a Western audience. So in order to change that in a certain way, I mean that we cannot trust the publications that are going out there. Yeah, we know that there is a pool of certain people and journalists who are writing about that also in Russian media. And I have to mention that Grani Publishing, they are not working in Russia anymore, but they were helping Crimean Tatar journalists, and they were giving them some like half-official status, being in the Crimea, being persecuted by Russian special services. Well, there is no black and white, you know. That would have been good to be like just to have black and white. But we need to understand the deportation of Crimean Tatars is something that is painful for each person, for each family, and people who are still alive, and they survived this deportation back in 1945. In each family, they have grandma, grandfather, and I won't say that it's hatred, but the disliking of Russia. They remember that. They remember what it means to be under the Russians, and this is a way maybe to cope a bit with the story, not to be repeated. And a lot of people were forced to leave Crimea. They want to come back home. And now, even after 8 or 9 years, they want to come back and live the normal life. So they do what they can. And for Crimean Tatars, it was always important to have non-violent defense. And this is how they can. Thank you very much. We have 3 more speeches. Olena Solodенко is the next one, then Olena Yaroshenska, and then Ivan Krasikov. So Ms. Olena, what are you going to tell us about? You're not alone. Please present the person who is with you. Together with my husband and co-founder, New Ukrainian Media, we are called Ukrainian.media. Please come to us, subscribe for our website, which is analytical, and we are checking information there for a really long time. We are trying to catch up, to be quick, and we are trying to give good analytical material, and I will present that. I will tell briefly about us. In addition to that, I'm the editor of the documentaries, and Serhiy is from Belarus. His manager, he was forced to leave in 2020. He had to come to Ukraine due to persecutions in Belarus. And I would like to mention, by the way, that the rights of the journalists in Belarus are also violated. And as of today, more than 35 journalists are there in political imprisonment. And we have to support them, and we have to divide like the followers of Lukashenko and Belarusian people. As for the material that we prepared, it's dedicated to the rights of journalists and fighting propaganda. The situations about how names and surnames of Ukrainian journalists are being used by Russian cyber criminals and propaganda promoters. The thing is that many people were observing that there were such inputs in the segment, in Ukrainian segment. There were some fake pages created of the famous information agencies, and the names of their workers were used. And for example, the main character, Irina Sinelnik, that person from my material, she's a patriot of Ukraine. She works in Onion, and she lives in Chernihiv. And a series of materials were edited like from her name, and they were written in good Ukrainian, not via Google Translate. And all of those were dedicated to a certain extent that Ukraine becomes weak, we have no normal army, or we don't have like equipment, and we have to give up to the conditions of Russia. And this material was shared in social networks, in ads, and so on and so forth. As soon as she learned about that, of course, she was shocked. She didn't know where to go in order for all these materials to be deleted. So we started learning who is responsible in Ukraine for deleting such like propaganda messages. And what came to our mind is that we came to the agency on radio and TV, and they are also engaged in registration of websites in Ukraine. And we thought that they also have to be involved to the process so that these fake websites can be banned straight away. However, it turned out that it's not like this. Mr. Koval informed us, the deputy, that they are not authorized to do that as of now, and in general he thinks that like fighting with similar resources is something unreal because there's a lot of such issues and so on and so forth. That didn't stop us, and we came to cyber police, and of course we got very quickly good answer that they are engaged in this problem, they are working on that. However, the journalist has to write to them, and they gave us the link to the website via general email, write the claim, and by the way, this journalist did it, and then they are deleting the website. However, I would like to mention that they are doing that only in Ukrainian segment. That is, they cleared up this first wave as of today. However, from Europe and from the USA, you can read the same materials like in Ukrainian. And still, we have a lot of people who are living abroad, and they may become like victims of such things. Again, cyber police cooperates with the SSU, as it turned out, and it's very interesting because when SSU answered us, they said, like, you got the answer from cyber police, we know everything, we are following that. So they didn't even make the double work, you know. And what amazed me personally is that our Ministry of Digital, Fedorov's ministry, it behaved horribly when we were communicating about this, because indeed it turned out that they have something to do with the detection and liquidation of these websites, like one-day websites, you know. However, the department which is engaged is a separate department, and for a long time, like almost like 1 month, and it's much longer than it should be according to the law. They were trying to figure out who should do that, and as a result, the woman called from that department, and to me, like, she phoned the Ministry of Digital Transformation, you know, and they informed that they sent the answer, and it was somehow not to my name, unfortunately. So some kind of chaotic things are happening there, and we understand that it's not of really good quality. So those who are doing the technically, they are deleting the websites. However, there is another branch that has to monitor and to make it so that the materials disappear straight away. And as it turned out, there are 2 informational centers who are fighting disinformation. One is under the Ministry of Culture, and Mr. Igor Solovey is the head of it, and the other belongs to RNBO. And they say that they are cooperating, they have enough people for that, they are doing that quickly. However, as it turned out, this is the other way around, because literally before the meeting, in 2 days, like after the publishment of information, Ms. Irina Sanelnik wrote me, and she sent me the screenshot with some new messages that were and are published from her name. And again, they are doing that, and she has to go through the same path to address personally the SSU and cyber police so that they delete that. And this is the effect of Barbara Streisand. It's included to our information field.
So we asked Mr. Sergei, the head of the Ukrainian Journalist Society. He said we have to pay better attention on the level of the existing organizations who deal with monitoring matters, but the journalists shouldn't just sit around, because really those others, the representatives of the mass media who were not so affected as Ms. Irina, that produced a number of articles, not a full series. They did not even address the competent authorities, because only cyber police responded that it was only one request submitted from Irina Sanelnik, so the rest of them seemed just unimportant. Well, let's just summarize it. So there is a new setup, or relatively new setup, of attack on the journalists or the media when the fake pages are created on behalf of them or under their name, and then the fake information is spreaded on their behalf, and thus this information is enjoying certain positive reputation of those journalists, or the trust to produce some fabricated information, or otherwise, it mentions just something that discredits the media or journalists themselves, and that you were able to study the fact that there is no system to counter those fakes in effect. Yeah, unfortunately, there is no such system in place, and as Dmitro Zolotukhin mentioned, a lot of donors provide grants for this, but somehow the effective system is not being created. We multiply the monitoring centers, but they don't make it on time, and what's most saddening is that half a year ago there was another wave when the Russian propagandists were created, where they were creating the foreign websites like Daily Mail, Telegraph, and they were publishing fakes against Ukraine in the English, for the English speakers. So unfortunately Russian propaganda keeps working. They use all means possible, and that's horrible. This is something being spread through the social media, right? Well, yeah, that's another effective tool of theirs, because even regardless of the fact that this fact-checking system works better abroad, still there's a lot of people who don't pay attention that there is no .com extension for that website, but some other letters, but they are made in a very quality way. They make very good counterfeit sites, but if you just make it in time, you submit the letters to the representative offices or of Google or Facebook, they will cleanse it within a couple of days, very quickly, really. So it's more complicated with the Telegram, so it depends on the social network. Some of them respond to the spreading of fakes and some of them do not. So you say that Telegram does not respond to any such cases. Well, you know, they enjoy very, so to say, loose freedoms there, and blocking anything in Telegram is virtually impossible. So it's the freedom of lies, basically. Yes, thank you very much for your speech. We've identified this problem. We can continue working with this and pressing on our government bodies, government authorities. However, there is a dilemma whether we should limit the freedom of speech, but here we don't talk about freedom of speech, but rather about falsifying the identity. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the freedom of speech. It's the right of a person to maintain proper reputation. So if we understand that any government authority is entitled to block something, they still can use it for the sake of something bad. Yes, so that they don't expand their capabilities for blocking something. They continue blocking things in Ukraine. So we just have to find out who's responsible for what, so that we don't create many responsible organizations. For example, let it be not only cyber police, let one just center do it, not unlike 2 or 3, like they do it now. Irina Yaroshinska, please, the floor is yours. Please tell us what your address will be about. I'm going to outline it. We were talking about the access to information, selective access to the government authorities for different journalists, intimidation of journalists, persecution of journalists, and cyber attacks on the journalists by falsifying their identity. And we were talking about the civil journalism in the temporarily occupied territories. Good afternoon once again. Let me introduce myself once again. Irina Yaroshinska, coordinator of Vinnytsia Press Club, with my colleague Natalia Bulkovska. We were studying the violation of the rights of the journalists during occupation and detention and captivity. And I would like to introduce the results of our work. We were telling about the life of journalists who made it during occupation, who were able to continue working. So according to the information from the National Journalist Society of Ukraine, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, 73 journalists died in Ukraine. And they are segregated into 3 categories. The journalists who perished during fulfillment of their professional duties, 16 persons. Then journalists who turned out to be civilian casualties, and journalists who perished in battle operations as servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine. More than 1,000 journalists ended up in occupation. There is no more detailed figure due to security reasons, but we know that such journalists do exist. Then talking about the other journalists, most of them left using the relevant channels, but there are such who are left in Ukraine, and they continue publishing their reports in their outlets. This type of activity is not well tolerated because it's a threat to their life and it's their personal choice, basically. In the temporarily occupied territories, the hunting for journalists continues. They are a very advantageous game for the occupiers, and officially they call 5 names of the journalists who are held in captivity in the occupied territories. Irina Levchenko from Melitopol, who with her husband Alexander ended up in a torture room since 6th of May this year. We have very little information about them, but we know that journalism was the only activity of Irina, so we assume that through this activity she ended up in captivity. There is no information about Dmitry Heluk, the journalist of Union, who is in Russian captivity since March year 22. He was taken captive by Russian troops withdrawn from Kyiv region, and he was taken to Russia, from where he was able to send only one signal that he was kept in captivity. Also, Ms. Alona told about Irina Danilovich from Crimea. Also detained in Crimea is Vlad Yasipenko, and from the 3rd of August, we also don't know where, but we definitely know that she ended up in the hands of the occupiers. A Ukrainian journalist, Victoria Roshina, who worked with Radio Freedom and who worked for Ukrainian Truth, Ukrainska Pravda, and she's an awardee of Ukrainian Journalist Awards. She ended up in captivity in Berdyansk. She was able to leave, and then she was trying to enter the occupied territory through Poland to make reports from there. So now she is detained, and for the time being her fate is unbeknownst to us. Also, there is a support for the journalists who end up in the occupied territories, and with the support of UNESCO, there is a network of hubs created. There are six such hubs in Ivano-Frankivsk, Lviv, Chernivtsi, Kyiv, and Zaporizhia, where the journalists can get all necessary support and assistance. We've made 4 publications covering this topic, because those terrible stories could not fit in one article. So let me tell you in brief about Angela Slobodyan, a journalist of Channel 24 who remained in Kherson. During occupation, she was making reports from the apartments, keys to which were left to her by her friends. She was switching locations, but she eventually got detained, and she spent 1 month in torture chambers. Everything she saw there, everything she was through in those torture chambers, she described it all. She was the first Ukrainian journalist who was providing evidences during the sessions of International Criminal Court in The Hague, and she was witnessing against Putin's regime. After her, there were more evidences, but she was the first one. Due to the security reasons, she doesn't tell us how she made it out of captivity, but staying in Kherson was of threat to her life, so she fled using the counterfeit documents. She fled to the territory under Ukrainian control. She went through Vasilievka checkpost in Zaporizhia region, and she picked that specific date when IAEA monitoring mission entered Energodar to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which drew the attention of occupiers to that event, and she was able to leave through Vasilievka checkpost using the counterfeit documents. So she ended up in Vinnytsia now, and she was proposed to become a lead of a utility service broadcasting company. So she's staying in Vinnytsia now. I also would like to tell you a story about a man from Velika Pisarevka village in Sumy region, which is located very close to the Russian border, just 6 kilometers from the border. And you know, in some places the border goes right over the landlots of the village inhabitants. They were not under occupation, but they are being shelled on a constant basis. And within some period, there was a moment when they had no information about what's going on in Ukraine. They have a broadcast signal from Russia, and within the first days of the full-scale invasion, they were cut off of Ukrainian media space. They were not aware of what was going on, and the editor-in-chief of this newspaper, Vorskla, they were not able to print out their newspapers. They do the printing in Sumy, so the editor-in-chief decided to issue a war leaflet. This is what he called it. On A4 format leaflet, he was making the summary, and they were disseminating it in the communities with the bread, and that was the only information back then that people were getting about what is really going on in the front lines. Well, it all continued for 1.5 months, and then they switched to the regular newspaper, but this war leaflet that was issued in 500 copies, back then it was the only source of information, something to grab at for the people. And yet another protagonist of our publications is Kharkiv region, the city of Izum, the horizon of Izum region. The city was in occupation within 6 months and 10 days, and editor-in-chief Mykola Kaluzhny, he was left in occupation, but on a daily basis he was maintaining a diary where he described what was going on, and the office that was located in an old mansion was occupied by the Russians. They established their headquarters there, and they've destroyed everything that was in their editorial office. So basically the goal or the purpose of our stories, you know, Angela Slobodyan, I was mentioning, she was already witnessing in the International Criminal Court in The Hague. So we've taken those evidences and we've submitted them to Orta Juris legal agency in Poland that is going to process that information and submit it to the International Criminal Court, and the information from the journalists who were affected, who were not able to exercise their professional activity due to the fact of ending up under constant shelling, under occupation, those journalists are about to witness as those who were affected by the Putin's regime. So if we sum it up, is there anything in common among all those stories? I can only mention the resilience of our Ukrainian journalists who never give up, and even under these super difficult conditions, they remain people, they remain journalists. Well, I was impressed by this story of a war leaflet printed on A4 paper. It's really a guerrilla journalism is the readiness to risk their lives. You know, we know that occupiers were not really polite with regard to such things. Thank you very much. And the last address, Ivan Krasikov. We have 10 to 12 minutes left the most. Ivan is from Dnipro, and his address covers the budget funds. Yeah, we are supposed to be putting it on the screen. It turned out Ivan has come a little bit later. If we can please put his presentation on the screen. Well, it's pretty brief. Let me start briefly. My investigation is about the censure. So we, in coordination with IWPR, is our second publication. First one was in January. It was covering the budget fund and the way it influences the censure. And in this investigation, we were describing the censure in the city of Dnipro and how it influenced the journalism. So in a number of cities, there are those utility service companies, channels that basically are in ownership of the local governments. Well, such a channel exists in Dnipro, and we've decided to find out why it works and how it continues operating in a way that violates the journalism standards. They continue lying. There are evidences of their lies, so they say black is white, white is black. They omit some things. They don't talk about some things that are supposed to be covered. Well, maybe it's your subjective evaluation. Maybe they were not really lying. Well, yes, there are evaluations. They were mentioned by the Institute of Mass Information. There were specific projects to describe this story, and the Institute supported us. So I have already found the sources on the TV channel, 3 or 4 of them, and they were disclosing the information to me on a systemic basis, what's going on there. And the only problem that we were able to cover, well, the propagandists, you know, those people, well, the system in place there is very much alike with the Russian ones. Svetlana Kryukova from Strana.ua is currently leading the team. She moved to Dnipro, and those people that worked for me, they documented everything. So she was visiting it for a couple of days, and then I have to mention that she tries to conceal her presence in the city of Dnipro. She only drives the cars, and during a training she started telling them, the employees of that channel, like the way you work, and they were working. I don't even have anything to compare it with. This is something similar to Skabeva. Well, not everybody knows what or who is Skabeva, so it's in the spirit of Russian propaganda. Well, yeah, for example, there was a very loud case, like our newspaper, the Faces, we were writing it, that after the surgery in one of the hospitals, a children's center named after Rudnev, a child has died and a military has died.
And 5 more militaries, 5 more children were in difficult condition, and they were brought to other hospitals. And in general, all the media that receive budget funds or funds from the budget, they did not write about that. The best thing that was written, that indeed somebody, well, Dnipro TV channel or like some media that have direct funding headed by the deputies of the council and who are in the political parties, and they are also working as producers, and they are like the opposition. They did not mention about that at all, and this is a very loud situation, you know. So they were just silent about that. Then the other story, children went to school, they are fed part from budget costs and partially parents pay for it. And in social networks, like the explosion, the food, everybody says that the food is bad. Like thousands of comments, and they just show that children are just throwing the food into the trash can. What Dnipro TV does, I mean the TV channel, every morning they invite to their morning thing. They invite the enterprise who is like cooking for them. They are tasting food and they're saying like, oh my God, what kind of delicious food it is, and so on. They are making advertisement for that, and in the evening they have new like messages that this food is not eatable. And it's like, okay, so Ms. Krukova came and she is introducing new standards. 2 more people say that we are going to quit. They started looking for a job, and there is no other place to look for a job there because almost all media are financed from the budget. And everywhere they have like censorship or half censorship and so on and so forth. And the heads of the TV channel learned about that, and they said like, okay, you left, you betrayed us. So like we met them with one of them, because one girl, she came and she came to the other TV channel. She's working there, and I said, if like legal support is necessary from the criminal point of view, then of course we are going to participate. And indeed, like if they won't like to pay to you, because money is important story, you know, and that was just a threat at the time. Of course, we came to Ms. Krukova and other, so to say, like bosses, and there was a team from Kremenchuk people. There's a person with the surname Feldman. So Krukova came, and his, like the friend was assigned, by the way, I see we have people from Kremenchuk as well, so Yevgenia Hamza, I think you know her. Now she's the editor-in-chief of the TV channel, and together they are trying to introduce this kind of a story. And like, okay, we wrote about that back then, and there was like the loud message about that, and I started getting pictures from their Telegram channel, because at first I wrote like on Facebook the post that Krukova came, and I'm asking for some comments and so on, and we sent comments like, yeah, I will answer you, of course, please write me that in the written form. She didn't send us anything. We were calling her, like, and this is a tendency, you know, it's not the first investigation that I am holding. If they don't tell you anything straight away, don't wait for the answer. You're sending requests, you're sending some things to Messenger. They say, oh, please do send us, and then they are like blocking you because they get your phone number. So as for the results, as far as we've been working on the topics at the beginning of the year, and since the last year even. From our side, we've been communicating with the police and the SSU so that our law enforcement bodies start somehow reacting. It came to the office of the president, and only there was the criminal investigation open regarding that, if the budget financing is with the censorship, that is illegal. So the criminal investigation, now the police is investigating the case, and we are going to give evidence regarding this. Second, could you please, on the table there is a clicker, so you can use it. Okay, last week, municipal TV channel on their morning streams, they started inviting opponents who are telling information about food at schools or nutrition at schools. And the deputy, people's deputy, who's writing about that all the time. And this is the kind of the effect. So, no. Literally in 1 week and a half, it came after that came out. So they're inviting this person every day together with the representatives. So what I've been mentioning is that it's a cumulative effect, that all the private entrepreneurs were thrown out of the system because with their help they were trying to steal money from the budget. Those who are using the censorship. And yesterday, literally, the petition was registered. That was without us, the activists. They said that this budget financing of Dnipro media from Dnipro's budget should be stopped, and all the money should be given to the militaries. Thank you very much, Ivan. We are at the end of our time, and the only brief question, are you going to continue working on this topic? Yes, till the time when all this financing, all this censorship will be gone. I will do that. And if we need a year for that, then a year, if more, then more. Because the next year, and by the way, Kruka, that is why she came, we are going to turn that into, this municipal channel has to be a social structure, and the head of that, Feldman and Krukova and so on, and others, now they want to change the format of the structure so that when it becomes the structure of the society, they want to continue controlling that. And I want to stop this. We are journalists. We have to be neutral, but we have to impact that. Thank you very much, Ivan. Now we have a brief break. 20 minutes, right? 20 minutes. After that, we will switch to panel discussion, and we will talk to the graduates of the previous iteration of the project regarding the access to information and also the prevention or of the work of journalists.
Вони сказали, що ці персонажі, які там працюють, вони працюють погано. Цензура працює погано. І вони там візьмуть спеціалістів. Все від Горбана. Фельдман, все. Він же ж, по-перше, він співзасновник фонду чи голова. Потім з Горбана фонду Горбан фінансує. Це ж скандал, вони ж приїхали. Я не святко, що
but especially as a source of information. Yes. Very much, but here it's very much used.
Very much used. Yes, it is.
Yeah. But not just for communication, but also to like for the channel.
Because how it's developed, it's very convenient to organize groups, pages, etc. And what's important, when you are in a group, when the group is new join, you can read the whole thing from the very beginning, because it's saved for you as a new beginner of this channel, with a new member of this channel. That's why people choose it, because of the format.
Yeah, I know that when it was media information literacy, the government did this media information literacy test, and there were also some questions about identify what are proper sources of information. But I just wonder in general, where they are, the fact that nothing on Telegram is that's not comparable with journalistic.
I think people are not really aware of that. And also historically, why we have turned to Telegram was because of censorship in the other platform. If Facebook wouldn't block any anti-Russian expressions or videos containing violence, we would not have turned to Telegram. In Telegram, that's allowed because that's the life we're living. On WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, it's not allowed. So most Ukrainian content is just not allowed on other platforms. That's what makes Telegram the only source that basically you can get information from without censorship.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, yeah.
That was just for, that's just live. If you can't post it anywhere else, that's where you turn to.
Yeah.
It's not makeup tips or, that's what Meta platform is built for.
Yeah.
So actually, I think that this is the example when taking care to censorship is actually incapacitated to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem, right? Also this like, hi, how are you?
I wanted to see you, to meet you here.
Yes, I'm leaving now, but it's nice to see you. How did your travels go?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was a little bit shorter than 2 weeks, and I visited 4 biospheric reserves and 7 national parks and reserves in Ukraine, and it was non-stop reach.
Yeah, I can imagine. So now you probably have a lot of material that you're
Yeah, I will write first 4 articles for December, 15th of December, and then focus I will send to you, but in the contract it's 20 photos, but we have much more photos.
Yeah, I mean, it's a minimum, so it would be good for you to make a selection, but you can always share with us if you want to share more, you can share more.
Yeah, I can share more because we have a lot of photos and they are all incredible.
Yeah. No, just think about it because when the 20 ones in the contract, we will have the copyright. So if you want to keep some for yourself with your own copyright, then just
so I can choose with my
Exactly. So the 20 ones in the contract, those ones we will have the UNESCO copyright for, but if you want to share some the copyright to yourself, you can do that by putting the
Доброго дня.
Yeah, and it was wonderful.
Exciting.
We climbed on the rocks and the mountains. I walked through the swamps. We walked through the rivers in my own legs.
Wow, super exciting. There's also it's not yet finalized, but at some point UNESCO will have this mission of scientists to come to look at some issues on I think it's on water, but it's not finalized yet. But at some point, if we know there's an official UNESCO mission on on a science show, we'll let you know. Because I think they might.
So I might go with them.
Yes, maybe
Oh.
you could cover them, but it's not finished yet. They're still planning on that.
Yeah, it's about water resources or about heritage.
I think it's about quality of water.
Quality of water, so
But
it would be in
and
Kharkov.
exactly, but it's not finished yet. The plans for it.
Oh,
But
we
they want
will
to
have
do it.
a lot of problems with
With compromise. Exactly. Exactly.
It's better to write that they are not scientists, they are volunteers, because volunteers missions, it's much easier to get there if you are a volunteer.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an official UNESCO mission, then they have to get these kinds of approvals. But it's not me working on that, but if I hear something, I will let you know. Victoria is doing a research.
Yes,
vice versa. Yeah.
We talked about it.
Yes, exactly.
I think we met earlier.
Of course you did.
Readers,
Yes, but I'm just happy that we found each other.
Yeah.
From IWPR project.
No, amazing, for sure.
Yeah.
So I interrupted you.
No,
Don't worry,
no,
also,
that's
I'm
good.
leaving now because
We were rounding up.
Exactly, we're just finishing our.
I will ask the question, but you can convey what I've already told you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I think you wanted to ask it to the.
yes, I will ask and then I will text you back what has been answered.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I don't know. Алло. Доброго дня. Так. Так. На третьому відділенні. Там контактний телефон, я сказала. Це те, що було на сайті написано. Так. Я створювала. Так. Все добре зроблено. Дякую. Дякую дуже.
Ні, ну там по факту, да, там щось таке, тобто кіноте, знаєте, як там, ну там треба запити. Пройшло 5 років пройшло, типу, все зробив, там подивився, о, там треба щоб знайти. Ще от щось чекав, що должна прийти і десь на днях скину.
А чого всі їдять, а ви не їсте?
То не надіюсь.
Що не голодні?
Думаю, що на тому тижні, а я вже сам хочу. Думаю, на тому тижні мав. Так, ну там, знаєте, от просто всі вже позарилися, не хоче вносити це своє перемогу. Що ті порішали, я тема тоді була актуальна в одному місці того. Зараз ходив, то я Тімочі.
Якщо хтось хоче поїхати з Гальорки на місце донорів, будь ласка, на місце донорів. А якщо посидіти на місці донорів, гроші з'являться чи ні? Ти якраз знаєш, сидиш там до закляття, яке ви будете там сидіти. Треба ж так, знаєте, і все. І донора треба було подати.
Друзі, прошу всіх збиратися в залі. В нас таймінг. Так, я не знаю. Please welcome everybody to our discussion panel. Yeah. Звідсиля. Зараз буде більш демократичний формат. Ми будемо
Now we'll have more democratic format. We will discuss more. We can even argue. Maybe some questions from the room. You will be able to ask those. Why did we decide to make this second part like that? As I mentioned at the very beginning, is that we've got the third group of journalists already who already studied and they wrote their materials, but we don't want to lose connection with the previous groups of journalists who were studying and they wrote their investigations. Yeah. So we've got alumni of the previous years and we would like to involve them as well. Maybe it's a signal from the other microphone, but something's happening with the sound.
В когось. Хтось фонить. Не зрозумів. Раз.
Maybe I just need to change my seat. Maybe that will improve. So, we would like to involve alumni of the previous years to discussion on the topics. We want to learn in general how the events developed after your publications, and I would like to invite the first speaker, Victoria Hubareva, who studied in the second cohort of journalists. And we would like to talk about access to information and access to local authorities. So, Ms. Victoria, let us give the mic to each other. Hi, everyone. Hello to all the journalists and experts who are here. I had my presentation in English because I thought that I'm going to present a bit earlier. However, my topic with the Oleg Balashev was not the one that is written on the screen above, but as far as this very topic, which is about me, it really impacted me recently. I decided to talk about myself and in a light speech, what was I facing? Maybe I hear advice from some of you. Maybe somebody will learn something useful. So I would like to mention how journalists, how people don't let journalists get access to information, I mean, from the state side. And yeah, here we see certain problems. I personally faced 5. Those are closed registers, closed access to location, and I don't talk about the front line. I am talking about the locations where there's no access at all, and later on I will clarify. Very bad answers from state bodies, that they are the answers that they are giving to our requests, because we are asking, they are trying to do that on time till the deadline, and they don't really work hard on the answer itself. Then we need to get approval of the photos, like censorship. We need to get approval for photos, videos. And one more problem is the drones, like whether we can take videos from drones. It's especially important for me because I'm working on the environment. It's important for me to see the beautiful picture or the picture of the ruination after or destruction after the war. However, this is possible only in a limited number of cases. The first story, closed registers. These are 2 ecologists. We are somewhere in Lviv Oblast, and they are standing on the place where there should be a river, should flow a river. How did I learn about that and the ecologists, actually? This is a map, like down there, cadastral Lviv, that had been functioning still at summer, and now it's limited due to the fact that the war is going on. No one can take a look. And it's very convenient to see what territories were given for agriculture and what territories were not. There are many norms in our legislation that forbid, for example, the territories next to the rivers, they forbid to cultivate these zones. Because it's like from 15, and Oksana will tell me if I'm wrong, 50 meters. Yeah, it's for different rivers, it's different. It doesn't matter for this material because the ecologists are on the place where the river flows, and there's no zone at all. So I published this news, and the criminal investigation was opened about the violation of norms of land legislation for the farmers and so on and so forth. However, I wouldn't have been able to do that right now because I simply cannot open this cadastral leave, and I cannot see whether there should be a river or not. Neither can ecologists do that. So yeah, it's just disappeared. The river disappeared because of the land cultivation. The thing is, when they're cultivating land right next to the river, the banks are like falling, and it's like a year or two, and then there's no river anymore. It was a very small river, but it doesn't exist anymore. And I understand this impacts badly the climate, the microclimate on this territory, because during the summer it's much more hot, and then the rivers become dry, and even tourism cannot be there because people are like swimming in the rivers and so on, and the registers now are closed, so I wouldn't have been able to do that. Then, limited access to territories. I am sorry for Russian, I don't know how to switch the language, but on the map with the red color, there is Dunai Biosphere Park, and I wanted to go there, and I wanted to see what is there. Yeah, it's Dunai Reserve. Yeah, I think you need we need one more microphone in the room. Yeah, I would like to explain so that it is clear. We cannot limit ourselves with the territory of military actions, because if we take Zhytomyr, Lutsk, Sumy, and other regions, then we have a territory next to the border, and here's the border with Romania. Moreover, the water territories, militaries might be there. If you have free access to the territory, okay, you won't go there. We don't know what journalists may go there and do some shootings and so on. It is related to the limitation of video recordings. You don't know where militaries are, and such actions that are not careful, they might impact the militaries. Of course, ecology is very important. However, as of today, first of all, we have to preserve our territories of Ukraine and life and health of local population, because the rockets will go there and militaries and so on. That is why, unfortunately, you took place which might be of certain danger. I would like to mention this so that we don't lose this important thought that not all the territory can be available for review. Indeed, yeah, it is so, and I would speculate if I say that it's the wrong word. Yeah, probably it is related to militaries or something. However, when I was at different territories, there was a military person with us. That was in Sumy, that was in one of the national parks where also militaries have their positions, and that military, he said, you can record here and you cannot record there. And that's how we did it. We just had to agree with OK South. I sent my request there, and the answer came from SSU. I don't know why. That it's a state secret, and we have to get approval from the OK South. And journalists know that it's not the easiest thing to do. And it turns out that in Odessa, people have to wear the protective vests, among other civilians, even during summer and heat and everything. So I think that this is just unwillingness from the side of press officers to give access, to spend their time, and this is how it is.
Then the limitation of the publication, what they say, please don't take pictures. I think you're not going to do this anyway. So those pictures were made just last week, right on the border with Poland. A little bit in Poland on this picture, so these pictures cannot be published too, so it's just right there. So it's okay if it's a picture of a photojournalist because there is a border sign by his side, but in case of my picture there is a pavilion by my side or behind me, because by that pavilion you can identify the spot, so this is why you're not supposed to publish it, which was very important for the project. I'm near the source of the river of sand, so we studied the problems of the border between Ukraine and Poland. It would be real cool for my project to add this picture. So maybe you can blur it on the picture or something like that. Yes, we could, but not all of the newspapers allow blurring it. Well, we hardly will be posted in National Geographic pictures because they don't allow blurring it. You can correct the colors, adjust the colors, but well, maybe some Ukrainian pictures, but this is a report about Poland. Like, here's the path, here's the pavilion, and well, finally there is a drone footage. Well, we switched off. Somehow it doesn't work. Well, you have to make pictures in such a way that such benchmarks as pavilions don't end up on the pictures. Yeah, we have pictures like that as well. Anyway, it's a drone made video, so just to make a video of this river, I spent hours for that. I have submitted a lot of letters just to agree upon this footage of the river, and when we were traveling along our national reserves and nature parks, we were only allowed to make footage from one of them only. So those are the problems I'm facing. There are resolutions regarding visits to the territories, like visit to Vilkovo, but they are only half legal, so I don't think, well, you can go there as a volunteer with a volunteer mission, and in that case probably the military are going to let you through. You can make a footage, but thus it may be of harm to our military. Like, there will be no person who will tell me like you can shoot here and you cannot do it right here. So well, thank you. Well, and based upon this statement, I would like to start a discussion, because during the break we were discussing it, that really journalists can always find ways to visit a place with volunteers. They can say they're not journalists, but I have my aunt living there, or like say I'm coming with the doctors to save the pets, stuff like that. A number of legends that we can produce, but we understand that it's unethical under normal conditions when journalists are supposed to say that they are journalists, that when they're supposed to have badges on them, to have a journalist ID. But when we talk about importance of the social importance of this information, when we talk about investigations, when we talk about some active battle operations that are probably being silenced, not due to the national security reasons, but because of some war crimes being committed, can a journalist work undercover? Can they step over their ethics? Well, there is a legal advice right away that we cannot do that, but maybe we should add another microphones that can be used in the studio. There is a switch right there. Let me take care of it. And you can provide your comments meanwhile, and then you, Alona. Well, look, it's an important topic, and basically we have to talk, first of all, apart from what Victoria mentioned correctly, there is censorship and Ukrainian journalists should not produce any harm for their citizens and implement some self-censorship. But what's the problem I'm seeing here? It's not about having everything closed or closed too much. It's about the Order of General Resolution number 73, which regulates photo and video footage, what can and cannot be published. So basically it says about the limitations imposed during the martial law. But this order is the essence of the problem. Unfortunately, it's not made to regulate the issue. It shouldn't happen in a way like Victoria says, like, I cannot make a footage of all of the National Reserve. And the principle of operation of our military is just to shut everything down, to restrict everything so that it doesn't create any additional problems. And the blatant example is the events in Israel. They disclose everything because it draws attention to what's going on inside the country. Thus, they give better support, including military and financial support. So what I'm seeing, what I think we should focus on is to make sure that this law, this Order of General Resolution is strictly and precisely sets forth. Well, let's imagine we're military, we don't understand how the communication should be going on, so we just restrict everything. So in case they make a meeting with the stakeholders, with the journalists, civil organizations, media organizations, and in the format of a dialogue they discuss it all, probably let's not accredit 35,000 journalists. At the same time, they provide accreditation even to those who never make any reports, any footages. So let's make some general accreditation and special accreditation. And for the special accreditation, there will be less people coming to those places. And I think you cannot keep all the information undisclosed, because thus we lose the interest about us is lost because we don't publish this information. We lose this support, and it's a huge problem for us because this is the way that we can lose this war. So we have to continue saying that we don't restrict everything, but we approach this situation in a balanced and logic way. Don't just prohibit everything, but let's think how it can be of threat, how we can limit it for the journalists. The journalists don't understand what they're supposed to do. They don't have any information. And the coordination is going in a very peculiar way. Specifically, Operational Command South is the most difficult area. You know, it turns out it's not the Zaporizhia region, but the South. So the essence of the problem is to have those requirements clear and transparent, properly discussed. Like, why did they review this order? Why did they make amendments? Because there were foreign journalists coming to Kherson, and they never really amended anything. Like, they implemented those 3 zones. In the green zone you can work, but at the same time you cannot, because the west of Ukraine is not a territory that has the majority of this, what's its name? Well, anyway, the yellow zone is where you don't publish anything about, and this is what we have for the time being. 1 2 1 2. Well, mine does work, so let me start talking. Should I stand up, or what is the proper way? Well, to add to what Oksana and Victoria have just said, during the period of the full-scale invasion, I was working on both sides. First, I worked as a press officer, and now I work as a military journalist. Now, my editorial, we have 5 journalists. We are trained to work in the area of battle operations, maybe better than some of the military are. And the only thing we're facing in reality is when the press officers and the commanders, they lie to themselves basically, and on the level of the operational commands north, it's very same to the operational command south. It depends on the mood of the commander. In the evening, we have a team to make a footage all along the border with the Russian Federation. All this border is under shelling all the time. We live in Sumy. It takes us 4 to 5 hours to get to the northern border because the roads are terrible. So what we have, the team to work in the winter, we have to leave at 5 or 4 o'clock in the morning. The commander wakes up at 6. Sometimes he makes a decision at 6:15. Sometimes it takes all the time until 9. And when he's in bad mood, he announces that it's the red zone, 20 kilometers in the depth from the state border. So the center of the city of Sumy is located 30 kilometers from the border. So a part of the regional capital ends up in the red zone, and the commander is guided by the Order 73 because he just doesn't clearly contemplate the areas. And then we work in other areas along the front lines too. And the press officers, they say, all right, you go. And we just make a paper that we were with you, and just in case anything happens to you, you never were getting that permission. If you make it right out of there, then we were with you. Maybe we don't really need that protection from the press officer, and maybe we don't need any permissions working with the civilians when we get permissions to make or not to make the footage. And we have to understand that sometimes the positions are not just trenches. We know how to work with those things, but other teams, they work there too. Just go there and that's it. So some of the roads between the villages, they go along the border with Russian Federation, and we can make more shooting of enemy positions, enemy soldiers, but it doesn't really concern anybody. And this lack of publicity, it's frightening, it's intimidating. When you work in Donbass, in the area of Bakhmut, there are press officers who stay with you until the very last moment. You tell them, okay, we want to shoot this, this, and that. So they give you the best. They understand their work. They take cream of the cream. In the 3rd Assault Brigade, it's okay. Well, let them be not press officers, but other servicemen attached to you, and you can work with them at the positions of the Assault Brigade. Well, no one will let you to the zero-line positions, but 500-800 meters away from the forward edge of the battle area, well, you can work together with the mortar teams, but they take that risk. Well, it's, for example, it's dangerous, but you can work there. So let's watch the media materials from 3rd Assault Brigade. They are cool, but when we talk about the government, you know that they say you cannot demonstrate the salaries because that can be of harm to the authorities. Recently, the authorities of Sumy region acquired 2 Toyota Land Cruisers manufactured in 2003 upon the request of a military unit. Kharkiv Territorial Defense Forces asked us about this, and they got it. So who drives that Land Cruiser? So they are driven by, well, first one is driven by the Deputy of Territorial Defense Forces of Kharkiv region. He is the former military governor of Sumy region. And, well, the response to our request was, no, you cannot disclose this information publicly. Well, the military administration published this information, but at the same time it's somehow secret or should remain undisclosed. So we somehow transform into a totalitarian regime. This is the biggest challenge that we're facing now. Even when the journalists come to a footage session, there is a strike incoming in the center of Sumy, and local police who sees the first strike for the first time within 2 years of war, they say you cannot shoot anything, and journalists spend time to explain to them what can and cannot be done. So I think not even all of the press officers know how the media should operate. I think it's a challenge for us, for all the media organizations, to communicate it to every single person who was able to put on their insignia. What to do with the press? Well, it was an intense address by Miss Alona. Yeah, the minister has changed in the Ministry of Defense. Maybe it all changes there. Maybe there were some changes in the Ministry of Defense. I don't know whether those changes are about to happen over there. So talking about the changes, the press officer of Operational Command South has never changed. So this is the answer to all of the questions. Well, by the way, I was working with that press officer last year. We were working without any mediators from the top level, and we had an experience of uneasy communication with her. Well, but this is the problem, the lack of publicity without clear criteria. I fully support Ms. Alexandra and everybody who expressed their opinions there. It just leads us to the defeat. Well, the death of people, the death of the military, it has two sides. First is those who are in offensive, and second, those who are in defense. The situation with Brigade 128, I studied this information now, this case, and there are blatant facts emerging. So if we know about what's going on there from the very beginning and someone communicates those signals, I think that this thing that happened in Zarishna village of Zaporizhia region, it wouldn't have happened. Well, there would be very serious reasons to think so, and now they close all information, they classify everything, the vehicles, they come to one brigade. I have information about it, but I cannot provide normal reasons for that, because the requests that are being submitted, they get no response because all the information is classified. On one hand, it's classified, and from the other hand, they keep telling me, you're a traitor, you work for the enemy. So yeah, it's about the cost of the eggs for the Ministry of Defense. We know about the winter jackets, thanks for the investigative journalists. So let's proceed to the second topic, the spending of funds by the local authorities. So I just wanted to add a couple of words that what was the most offensive is that we Ukrainian journalists, we don't hide, as Andrei mentioned, we don't camouflage ourselves as the volunteers, but Kostychenko from Nova Gazeta, the new newspaper, she says it officially in the interviews. I was faking a volunteers, I was making my materials from those areas that were spread through all foreign mass media as well. Or Miss Albas, she ended up in the territory of Ukraine as a citizen of Israel. So those manipulations, I think that our security service basically should be taken better care of us, because they keep track of us, Ukrainian journalists, so that we just, God forbid, don't show that river, but they miss such a big fish sometimes. So talking about the spending of the local authorities, thank you very much, Miss Victoria. By the way, I checked out what you were writing about previous time, and you were writing about the theft of journalists' identities and the persecutions. Yeah, about persecutions of the journalists, of Ukrainian journalists by the local authorities. Well, the local authorities, they just start hunting Ukrainian journalists. Just, yeah, write or read the rubrica editorial, how the Ukrainian journalists are being hunted, is the text by Miss Victoria. So
I would like to mention, like, Ivan, you took the microphone and you just try to hide back there. But the interesting topic, actually, about expenditures. Okay, come here, Ivan. We will discuss it with you. You're not mentioned as a speaker here, but you are our alumni, like, 2 times. Yeah, and we kept you for 2 years. You know, you're a team, actually. And last time you wrote about spending money by local governments, local self-governments for PR. Yeah, about land cruisers, that's a clear story already. What's wrong with the fact that local authorities want to tell people about themselves? They want to tell what they are doing. It seems that nothing bad is in that, some communications. Hi, yeah, we can hear you. Okay, look, no issues with that. Even the law that was adopted after the law about the media since the 1990s, it existed. If the local authorities, or not local, in the framework of the marathon, they want to say the truth, and they want to give according to journalist standards and legislation in general, to the other side, they also let the opposition, so to say, to speak. And if this is the material prepared according to journalist standards, no issues with that. I am standing for the fact that all professional media and journalists have opportunity from the state to get financing, especially now under the military conditions. However, what do we have, unfortunately, as of now, is that this story is distorted. Because as a matter of fact, we have the fact that media turned into propaganda channels like Russian or other authoritarian countries. And on Kyiv level, this was not especially visible. However, like in eastern Ukraine, southern Ukraine, Odessa, Dnipro, Kharkiv, these are some, I don't know how to say, crazy things. They turned the municipal TV channels where dozens of millions of hryvnias go there and other media to their propaganda platforms. And as a matter of fact, the press services of these self-governments have a minute more. They even earn on that. So they wrote that they made a network of private entrepreneurs who were giving cash or costs, and then they were distributed among certain people. So that we suspect that there is also stealing. Yeah, now criminal investigation is in force, and in 3 years we were knocking, and finally they started investigation. Maybe something will move. So something happens in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, in Dnipro. I think that in other regions the authorities are not doing this. Maybe I'm mistaken. Do we have some statements? Thank you, but present yourself. Vlad, Vin's Agency of Journalist Investigations. I would like to be the advocacy, the advocate for the devil, you know. And I hate Vinnytsia TV channel, which is, so to say, pro-authoritarian. But what else can we expect from that? They were created in order to highlight the activity of local authorities. Therefore, if there would have been some journalist investigations, what the authorities are not doing, that would have been weird even. Yeah, we know that there are other models. We know that there is some television which is independent from the authorities, or they have like a separate council, or for example here in Ukraine Forum we are sitting and it's a state enterprise. However, we can, at least for now, we can make some, we can criticize, you know. I don't know about the other regions. However, Vinnytsia Suspilne is now different from the things that were there before. It was the like propaganda channel. They are just highlighting the news. So on the local level, the reform did not come, right, of public broadcasting. Yeah, I would like to mention regarding, actually, that is okay, and that's normal when state authorities, according to like local self-governments, people's deputies, and so on, they have to report to their like election audience. They have to highlight in their activity and what they did. That's okay. And what is the only thing that is not okay in here, that the money from the budget for highlighting goes only to the media that in their activity highlighting only positive things. And like, okay, how good this deputy is because he did some playground for the children, roads, and so on. Let's be honest. The first PR that starts before the elections, the deputy made the road, like repaired the road using his own money. Okay, but people don't understand like that it's thanks to the deputy, not thanks to the taxes paid, not thanks to the work done, but it is shown in a very exclusively positive way. If you look at municipal media, they either speak about some good things or they say nothing, or negative into positive. The journalists who can also highlight in the activity of the authorities, they don't have access to get there. So it's like they cannot, on equal conditions, they cannot get such orders to highlight in this. So, and the budgets, if we look at the materials of Ivan Krasikov, the budget, like just crazy amount of money is spent on this. If we don't have media in the regions, then if the money would have been taken for the things that they had to be taken for, then we would have had really good media, because our state media, like the new law on media is introducing now, again, some community media have to be created and they have to gain the status. However, moreover, what I would like to mention that not in a single country of the world there are like state media. Here we move even further because media is now we are establishing the new type of media under the conditions of military time or martial law, that is military media. So now we don't have municipal media, but the Ministry of Defense now can create military media. We see all the marathon, only good things about authorities and nothing else. So just imagine that the materials about the militaries will be the same. So the first training within this program, like the beginning, we were talking during the training that was last autumn, and that was regarding the study in Kyiv Independent, Anya Myrnyuk, about foreign legion. I remember when I was communicating with the participants and they said like, well, we cannot write about that because we are harming the militaries. And we said like, wait a minute, we cannot harm the militaries. However, it's not about harming them. It's about the fact that if we don't write about it, we won't have any weapons. Examples. Again, nothing goes nowhere. And the Zaluzhny's assistant gets new grenades, 6 grenades, go to his home instead of giving them to the militaries on the zero. And this just underlines that, yeah, the criminal procedure has been opened, that he had no right for this type of weapon, and so on. Let us be honest. If we go to the Ministry of Defense, each person has some weapons, and foreign sign or in their room, or they are going and they are hunting with that and so on. So this says that we have to write about it. We have to speak about it. It's not about war. It's not about that. It's about becoming richer. It's about gaining authority. It's about the possibility to cause pressure and to feel himself a god on the certain territory. And as Alena said, that the mood is of the North, like Battalion North. Like they say, we will decide what is it. Like, is it going to rain today or not? They're not gods. And we as journalists, we have impact in our country, which is democratic, still democratic, not like in Russia. And we have to use the tools. We have to speak about that. We have to, so to say, like knock to these people, including if we want to go to the EU, we have to adopt certain legislation, we have to fight corruption and so on. So only via us as journalists, it is possible to make changes, to impact, and we should do that. We shouldn't be afraid of doing that. And as a journalist, I would like to advise that before highlighting such issues and before publishing such issues, we have to have a consultation with the lawyers, because strengthened criminal responsibility since last year doesn't disappear. And first of all, you are subjects of responsibility. So, and the thing, like whether you done that on purpose or not, this is the issue of qualification. So nobody, like, so as people who are publishing information, you should understand what you are publishing. So the topics that might be risky for journalists when publishing, you have to talk to lawyers regarding such, ask for consultations. Okay, Alena, before you say, I would like to clarify, Ms. Oksana, you think that the money that local authorities give for that, they have to be given as grants, or what kind of mechanism is that, like via ProZero when we are procuring potatoes or something else? I think ProZero, not like it's happening right now. We have to highlight and quickly, oh, okay, local scheme, so we adopted that. On competitive conditions, journalists, media, regional, of course, first of all, but we are risking that, so to say, pocket media will be created, independent ones. However, the problem also is in like tender legislation. Why? Because there's no clear criteria. And now the investigation will be published, and journalists showed that reconstruction of the destroyed houses on the territory of Kyiv Oblast is done by the enterprise, which is working only in the field of roads. Why are they reconstructing the houses? Not because they wanted to earn money or to take something. No. As it was mentioned to the journalists, the sources said that they, like, you win the tenders for roads, like billions. Now we need you to help the state. And as far as like during the war, those are urgent services to be done. They were the only ones who procured like lots. One house, 4 million. I think that is pretty good money. And that's it. They don't need other participants. They just participated in the tender, one company, and that's enough. And we remember that if there are no like competitive procedure, then the tender is not going on. So why did I mention that? Because the company that won the tender has negative history. And they have many criminal procedures, like criminal investigations that are going on against them. And we can like refuse them only if there is sentence from the court. However, not all cases come to the court. And so for the mentioned enterprise to win the tender, they have to, like, we have to introduce this criterion as well here. how many years this legal person has spent on the market, what is the image of the company, and so on and so forth. We cannot be like blind in that, so to say. And the tender should be the one like which is transparent for all the participants. Okay, there's Ivan. If this is according to Oksana's topic, then Alena. And still we'd like alumni of the previous years to get more and more involved. I see that there are people from previous trainings. Please get involved if you have something to say. If you're just comfortable to listen, then you can listen. However, if you want to speak, then please. Yeah, now in general, with the distribution of financing is a very hard situation because according to the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers, we can just skip tender as such. You select one provider and you pay money and that's it. As for the redistribution of money, I was communicating not only just with Oksana but also with other participants. There are no legal reasons in order to procure, or in order to provide the money. The loans self-regulation, yeah, there are such like grounds. You were working in local governments, right? Self-governments. Yeah, I was working in the almost, yeah, that was vertical, yeah. As for the money, for highlighting, if possible, I would like to speak from this side of like ex-authorities. We can allocate the money for that. I don't remember, was that end of spring or beginning of summer, but you can give the money. On the example of Sumy Oblast, my position is the state should not finance the media. If the media cannot find money for existence, then probably it is not really necessary. When the authorities start creating rumors and propaganda, taking money for local media, and they cannot do not just propaganda, but they cannot highlight on some issues, then it's a shame, you know. What did we do last year? Understanding that after the 2 months of occupation of Oblast, when in defense and informing the population, media were doing all of that, they had no money. I'm not talking about advertisements, and nobody had the opportunity to work with grants and so on. As a local media, we allocated money from the budget for local media so that they have the opportunity to pay salaries to their workers, some kind of minimal level, to stay online. So like, for example, TV channels, like they were making payments, so there were no like discounts. And also like to do some supplies, like they provide media to the borderline territories. Like nobody will write about the neighboring street, for example, except for the local media. We decided to support them with our budget money, and autumn, the year 2022-2023, those media that existed, they could find grant financing. And if you were facing financing of the media organizations, I guess now it's the easiest thing to do, like in all the period. I'm talking about about the frontline and occupied territories. I'm from the frontline territory. However, like the grant financing, to find it, it's hard. Like most don't look for it, that's clear. However, this is the quality of journalism. Yeah, Ms. Oksana wanted to comment. Mr. Ivan is right. The new law on media, and last year it was still enforced, the old law on media. Indeed, the law on highlighting the activities of state authorities and so on was cancelled. However, nobody cancelled reporting of authorities about their activities. Like, they should report, they should inform about their activities. So the body itself, like the state body, can allocate money in order to inform about their activities. The issue is who is getting the money.
Please pass the microphone back. Please don't forget to introduce yourself for the record. Volyn Online editorial, the city of Lusk. Please keep the microphone closer to your mouth. I would like to unite this matter of selective access to information with the matter of local governments funding. We were studying the issue of funding the activities of the local governments related to the publicity of their activities, and so somehow it just happens so that the funding is allocated for two companies which are associated with the local deputies, and we've also disclosed the information about the selective access to the information. And for example, most of the media, they get responses about the access to information being restricted. This is what we were getting from the State Border Guard Service, from the local authorities. We were asking the State Border Guard Service about the passage of certain selected vehicles just beyond the line, and they were only commenting it in the favorable light for them. Yes, Mr. Pavlo was writing it in cooperation with the co-author, a text about the selective access to information in Volyn region. Well, you don't call the names, but I remember them. It's People's Deputy Palitsa and People's Deputy Stepan Ivakhiv. So what was their reaction? Were there any criminal cases initiated? Well, there were no cases brought to the court, and those two People's Deputies within the last year, they don't make any public comments within the last year. So the last time we were hearing anything from Palitsa, it was like in May year 22. Yeah, we see this situation in other regions as well, when the government authorities, they finance their pocket media or influence the public sentiment through their municipal media. So I would like to have Ms. Alona engaged in our conversation. Ms. Alona, what's going on in Kyiv and Kyiv region? Your media is currently covering this region. Good afternoon, Alona Melnik, Kyiv Vlada. I am the graduate of the second wave. After the second wave, our media was represented by my colleague Lina, so it's the first time I'm seeing everybody, so I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to thank everybody for organization. We want to thank Ms. Oksana for communicating with us in Zoom. She gave us the better direction, proper legal direction. We were talking about the physically destroyed media in Kyiv region after the occupation. So in continuation of this discussion, what we're talking about now, we talk about different restrictions which seem to be invented on the go sometimes. And as my colleague has mentioned about this Order 73 that is construed by the people in different ways. So an example is Bucha. Bucha was very seriously affected, we all know it, but we faced a type of procurement when the capital repair of a building is being procured and the address is not being specified. So we check out those procurements, it's 10, 20, indefinite number of them, and we ask why does it happen so, and we are being explained that the law on public information has changed and we are entitled to conceal that information because it may be of risk to those who organize the procurement, for those who reside there, and so on and so forth. So we asked Mr. Mayor of Bucha, so how it can be of harm, and they try to avoid answering the question. They try to evade it, And the answer is very simple. Only 5% of the demand is being covered. And it turns out that those capital repairs are being procured from associated people, so it doesn't create any public resonance. This is why all this information is concealed. So it's talking about the first topic. And another thing I wanted to add, that during the training that we had, what was the most painful is the closed registers that we cannot influence and their information requests. I remember Ms. Oksana was mentioning that there is a life hack. When you write a request, just mention the public importance, describe the public importance. So I'm coming here after the 3rd edition, so write about the public importance. This is my advice to my colleagues. Well, someone was making fun of me, someone was taking it skeptical, but they say, I doubt that someone in the department of the Kyiv Municipal Administration will take care or will care about the public importance. But anyway, we were using a number of other tools that I'm about to tell you, because within the second part of the year 2022, I only got a response to one of my requests. I wasn't even hoping to get it. It was a surprise to me. It was such a surprise that I didn't even add it. It was completely unexpected to me that someone even had even responded to me. So the advice I can give you, what tools we were using. We've achieved a very significant percentage of responses currently. First of all, it's a strict control. If the last day of the response expires in the morning, we call them and we tell them, today is your last day of response according to the legislation, and it does work. And we usually get such response within the last day. And the complaints. This is another efficient tool. One of the agencies never responded to us, but a complaint to Cabinet of Ministers worked just fine. We got a response within a couple of hours. So I wanted to ask a lawyer. We wanted to submit a complaint to the Municipal Council of Vishneva. They were acting in a peculiar way. Just let me know if I'm running out of time. No, that's an interesting issue. So I just wanted to ask this question. We submit the electronic request and they answer us, just add the signature. I draw the signature in PDF and they say, no, we don't need this kind of signature, we need a digital signature. So I'm asking the editor-in-chief and he's shocked. He says, what kind of document is that? Is it an accounting document? That's the first time it happens to us. We are required to do this. And we add this digital signature. So first of all, how legal is that on their end to demand us to add such a signature? So we were submitting requests about the procurement, and we finally complied with all of their requirements, and they had to respond to us. But during this long communication, it just came up to my mind, what if they don't respond to us? To whom should I submit the complaint against the Municipal Council? In case of Ministry, it's clear. We submit the complaints to the Cabinet of Ministers. So the first question is about the digital signature, and second, whom should I complain to about the municipal councils and the people's deputies? So Oksana will tell us about whom to complain, and Victoria wanted to add another statement. Well, when you were talking about the bids, when they cover that information in the website of Prozoro, where they cover the addresses, the law of government procurement was not amended in that part. Information about the premises to be repaired is not an information which is something which is a kind of information that can be of harm or at risk. In coordination with Valia Samar from the Center of Journalists investigations. She asked me that question too. Ms. Oksana, what am I supposed to do? They are preparing materials about the Kherson regional military administration, which builds shelters now. We understand there are permanent shelters in Kherson. It's an important topic. So for your understanding, the money is being spent there, but nobody is doing anything. They continue increasing the value of it. They continue postponing the terms. And then when we submitted the request, we were mentioning that the legislation was not amended in that part. They disclosed all the information right away because that's illegal to conceal that information. Back in my day, I told the journalists of Kharkiv Anti-Corruption Center when we were finding information about the reconstruction of the buildings in Kharkiv, and within this self-censorship, we were saying it's closed over there, so there might be a strike, but they just were pulling all the information by themselves. But such requirements to conceal that information about the addresses, this is a common practice now, but that's completely illegal. In compliance with the bid procedures, they cannot conceal that information. You know, it's the same risk as the risk of a meteor strike on the Earth. So talking about the digital signatures, so that's illegal requirement. If we read the law on the access to public information, it contemplates that the written request should be signed. A written request is when you write something on the paper and you are supposed to add your signature there. So again, we're going to dispute it because I'm tired of such cases, so we take this case to the court. Again, the Center of Journalist Investigations, they got it from Kherson Military Administration. They say the same thing, just add a digital signature, and they're so advanced that they try to complement it with the law on the electronic signatures, but the request is not an electronic document in a sense of electronic documents. It doesn't have details that require adding a digital signature in the same way they could ask you for the passport. So there are no such requirements, and such requirements are completely illegal. And everybody who writes to me, I will send a repeated request to you so that you forward it to them to prove them wrong. You can add this request right away with your request because that's unreasonable. If there are lawyers sitting there who just make things up in order not to respond, so their actions are illegal. I think if you forwarded them those documents, if you explain them that this is no electronic document, they will understand it, and they will understand that it's a failure to respond. So it can be disputed in a court, first of all, and then you can submit a request to the Commissioner for Human Rights, but that's in the case if you were applying as a physical entity, as an individual, or also if you were signing it as a journalist. Victoria had a comment, and I'm suggesting we proceed to the topic of Russian propaganda and frontline journalism, so we are supposed to cover everything. It's just gonna take 30 seconds. I had such type of responses like add digital signature, but I was prepared. I knew that it's not required for the request. Sometimes you don't even have to spend time to write some complaints or something. Just show your teeth in your response, like what is that you're writing? I gave them some excerpts from the law, copies of the paragraphs, and on the very same day they were sent me the adequate answer. When I was submitted my request to the Ministry of Ecology without answer to my question, they just sent me the standard response, like which, well, I was in a good mood, which deteriorated significantly, and I told them it's no response, it's just some fake. So, but anyway, they responded me in 2 days. Well, my name is Oleg Volashov from Kherson. So after you gave us that paper, I submitted it to Автозаводский district court. I showed it to Pankratova. She said it's nonsense, but it may have been a nonsense, but this is what they respond to. With the electronic document, you should use the electronic digital signature, which identifies the author of the document, and it's to confirm that the author is real. So you're not getting any response. Well, but how do we verify that the personnel of the court, they have legal education and they know how to read legal documents? So I'm telling you, this is the response that you recommended to send, and this is what I'm getting from them, from that very same court. Well, it's a complete nonsense that emerges from time to time in our courts. Well, you just have to show your teeth, and they react properly to that later on. Well, send me this copy, I'll resend it to them, because I know how those documents addressed to the court should be signed. Some of them do require electronic digital signatures, some of them do not. But there are documents which are being sent as the information requests, and they comply with the law on information requests. I would like to talk on the microphone anyway. Well, we've heard it. It won't just be on the record, so one way or another, I'm inviting you to be my co-moderator or co-reporter, Miss Maya. So let's discuss the influence of Russian misinformation. Is it present in your region? Is it present on your media? How is it expressed? In which areas does it work? In which does not? And how do you counter it? So the topic of Russian propaganda is quite present in any region, in my opinion, specifically in Volyn region. So you seem to be a remote area, an area remote from the front line, but unfortunately there is also Belarusian propaganda, not only Russian, and they work jointly. That's why the Belarusians copy Russian propaganda, their narratives. And I would like to recall year 2022 when this information was repeated in the information space about Belarus, which is about to start an offensive. Even some prominent Ukrainian media were saying, like, at 9 o'clock, wait for an attack. And I've seen the reaction of the people who were panicking, who were hysterically writing some messages, some communications that Belarusians are about to attack. But then I've seen some jocular messages by the representatives of the local governments, like 20 minutes more, and, well, yeah, I understand they were kidding, but we all understand now that it never happened. At the same time, I would like to tell in brief about my material that I was covering for the Center of Journalist Investigations, The Force of Truth. It's called The Way the Belarusian Propaganda Works. It was published on the 31st of August this year, and I would like to invite all the journalists present here after my speech. So in your opinion, how we are supposed to counter Russian propaganda? I will give my opinion later, but you can tell us something too.
Well, actually, Russian and Belarusian propaganda, the core is the same, taking into account the situation that Belarus is in, and we can see that, as a matter of fact, the state is in the colonial position regarding Russia, and it's just now the troops are not coming from there, however they used to. Well, even when I used to be abroad in Warsaw, I saw a few, so to say, like victims of that propaganda of Russian and Belarusian, and it's so scary what is in the heads of those people, and they seriously say that Ukrainians are shelling own territories, and you are trying to explain them, however, still they continue reading even though they live abroad, and those are journalists, and they somehow they are confident in what they say. And also the thing is that propagandists cannot be called journalists, because those who are lying, they violate standards, they are not journalists. And we all know that real true journalists, they write the truth, they highlight an important information, and they show important things. I would ask you not to retell the material itself, maybe some thesis. Where did you find, in which fields did you find the propaganda? Well, actually, I was analyzing via VPN a lot of media. And the main sources of propaganda, I would say about Belarus, because I had it there. So the main source of information for Belarus, especially for those who live further there, remains the TV. That is Belarus 1, STV, and other TV channels that are sharing this information. And I have also interesting information. I'll try to find that quickly. Yeah, here it is. According to the data of the monitoring of Media IQ project in 2022, the propaganda had been used, most of all the TV channel Belarus 1. It's 67% out of the general amount of the messages learned. And the first half of 2023, the leader is ONTS TV channel. And I think it is worth mentioning that with Russian propaganda, we have to fight it. We have to write more materials that are of analytical nature, more news about that. So as soon as something comes up, we fight it straight away. And it's important also to translate that to foreign languages, Polish, German, English, Romanian, and others. The more languages, the better. Because this is very important. And I would like to add that recently I was consulting like Polish journalists, and they won the grant for the project on disinformation prevention. And unfortunately, there is such a moment that a lot propaganda writes about Poland, a lot of lies, and they have one aim: to make the relationship of Ukraine and Poland worse, to spoil the relationship. And so this project starts in 2024, next year. And these projects are important. I think we should have more of those. That is, you mean that propaganda works not only within Ukraine, I mean Russian propaganda, but also for our partners in Europe. I offer you to join. Yeah, and about Belarus as well. Yeah, that's very interesting. I'd like to ask, Mr. Ruslan Moroz is with us? No? Okay. If he comes, then, like, probably, like, he had to join us, however, if he is not. So, who would like to say a few more words of out of the alumni who hasn't taken the floor? So, Ms. Alona, I give you the microphone to comment. Thank you very much. I was sitting. I was I wanted to make a comment that Russian and Belarusian propaganda are the same. It's not the same. And unfortunately, Sergei Prokhorov left already. We have separate chapter. He makes monthly overviews on Belarusian propaganda, how it works. And the YouTube channel is Belay to Ukraine. If you're interested, you can watch it. The Belarusian propaganda works in different way because after the full-scale invasion, they came, like specialists from Russia came to them and they started like giving advice. However, their position is to stay in the middle. So actually, like, we are not aggressors and so on and so forth. And they even have, like, even though they became more aggressive in media sense, I mean, they have, not Solovyov, but their propaganda speaker, so to say, that is a meme person. However, they are very, like, unfortunately, not only TV, but also they came to the internet and they started spreading their propaganda there as well. So there is a huge problem that literally all the journalists who are not sitting in Belarus as of today, they had to leave and they work in the editorial house. So some of them are in Ukraine, some are in Lviv. And as a matter of fact, that's a problem. And what is the problem for us as Ukrainians is that in our media space, we have to perceive Belarus not as Lukashenko's place, you know, but people are making it this way that maybe we heard something about Belarus, yeah, they are co-aggressors, and that's true as a state of Belarus, as Lukashists want to underline, even though there's official statistics and 80% of Belarusians, they were and they are against attacking Ukraine. Even their state media are saying that. So the situation is very and very different. And in Ukraine, together with Sergei, 1 year ago, I launched the project on reforming the news of adequate Belarusians regarding Ukrainian news and vice versa, Ukrainians regarding Belarusian news. And unfortunately, we face the fact that this problem, these news are not highlighted, not just in Marathon, but nowhere. And what kind of barrier is now there? Because they cannot decide on the higher level what they should do with that. So a few speakers, fortunately politologists, appeared who are working with Belarusians. However, such collaborations, they have to appear, and we have these adequate media. We have to involve these adequate Belarusians. And it's not like we have the channel, because now we have only Belsat TV channel, and that's a very interesting situation because even before the full-scale invasion, like this channel is financed by the Polish government. However, when they were inviting Ukrainians, they said didn't speak Russian. Why? Like in Belarusian, they have broadcasting in Belarusian, and they say like, okay, for Belarusians who don't understand Ukrainian, how is that? And today they changed that, and Ukrainian speakers are speaking Ukrainian during the broadcast with them. But Belsat is not enough as the only media platform, and I would like to use the opportunity and encourage to the fact that we should make some information, not propaganda, about the news in there, because like Volyn, Lutsk, and others, like more or less, they could hear something about that. And all the rest remains terra incognita. My husband wouldn't have been from Belarus. I wouldn't have known that like some percent of information, and I was like cooperating with the Belsat itself. So that could have become a problem. And my colleague mentioned regarding that this propaganda information has been like mentioned somewhere, and these propaganda channels appear. They are not repeating, they are softening and still promoting Russian narratives, and they are translating that into Polish. They are coming to our partners and they try to get them on their side, and we how nothing. And unfortunately, we have to think not just about the fact that there are just channels like dumb for adequate Russians, and I guess there are no adequate Russians. However, we still have to address Polish audience and other audiences in other languages. And we made certain attempts. We wanted to make up some international channels, and none of the foreigners were watching those. We want to try and do that qualitatively. Okay. We also had one other person. Hello, Ivan Kosyakin. I want to ask clarifying question to journalists. Sometimes, like before the full-scale invasion, when he, used to go to the east of Ukraine or south of Ukraine, and there are Russian federal channels. So if you have satellite TV, so you say that Belarusian regime is targeting Poland. So how well they are covering our territories, and how are they getting into their brain? There was information I read on the websites, that is imaginary, so to say, story, fictional story, that Poland is preparing to attack Ukraine and to take the Western oblasts. Of course, this is nonsense, and these are lies. However, propaganda works in such a manner just to spread fear among people. They have their own aim, and I would like to add that informational vacuum, it's always dangerous. And therefore, we have to explain clearly any widely spread information on the internet, because if people don't understand something, or if there is something unknown, then it might scare them. And that is very cool if information, if there is the information which is explaining things going on, and it's coming timely. Okay, Mr. Pavlov. Yeah, I would like to add regarding the specifics of Volyn. Maybe colleagues from other regions don't know that before the full-scale invasion, for a long time, part of Volyn regions, especially Polisia, they had no coverage of Ukrainian television, and in some regions the TVs were catching Belarusian and Russian TV channels, and that was even impacting the electoral audience, because they were voting for the Party of Regions, and Adam Martinyuk is also from there, the ex-People's Deputy, before the full-scale invasion. Yeah, before. Has the situation changed? I don't know what is the situation with the coverage there right now. However, those are regions where both Moscow Church and also has big impact, and men from there were going to Moscow for earnings even after 2014. That was considered as something okay. The problem had been existing for many years, even before the full-scale invasion. So you are mentioning also the church. That's a very triggering topic, and still the church is working. I have a question to the audience, actually, from Mr. Uchar, who was representing here the Embassy of Japan. Actually, now it's very hard to explain the phenomenon of Telegram to foreigners, because in Europe, that is Messenger in line with WhatsApp. And we are reading channels. We just wake up, we have everything in Telegram, the air alerts, Telegram, and Sternenko in Telegram, everything there. Yeah, Frontline Telegram. By the way, we are not in Telegram. We are still on Facebook. I was trying to explain. That was my assumption, that we started using Telegram, especially after the beginning of the full-scale invasion, because of the censorship on other platforms. We could not post dead Russians, I'm sorry, and Facebook because it was blocked straight away. Half of content about war is just deleted under the censorship. And in Telegram, no censorship. And we were exchanging our life via such a platform. His question is how to prevent disinformation in Telegram. Are there, well, there are some channels with the, you know, like the blue check, so to say. But how do we filter whether Ukrainian people understand that it's just a source of fakes? This is his question, not mine. I just want to hear your opinion because I need to answer the person. Maybe I would not answer you 100%, but I would like to mention that Oksana and I, we are talking, like, not the first, not the last time, because in Telegram, they're writing such bad things about us that, and we can do nothing. Like, okay, look, they again wrote some bad things about me. What do? Like, nothing. Why do we develop with the Telegram? After the beginning of war, my audience grew so much that I couldn't understand it first. And then I realized that thanks to the fact that we were looking at the air alerts, we were not like looking at certain fakes. We were looking at the local channels, like the Kremenchuk channel, for example. So the number of people there was growing rapidly, and they are like, that's it. So yeah, now our audience is smaller. However, yes, there is some disinformation. Like, if you say that we need to block them, we submitted like thousands of claims. Nobody blocked them. I would like to answer the question, by the way, using statistical data. If we return to the full-scale invasion, then the level of consumption of Telegram channels in Ukraine was, if I'm not mistaken, like 10-15%. The consumption now, which is more than 80%, 82, yeah, started after the 24th of February, and that was caused, you know, by which? Because in Telegram channel, there was quick and adequate information, that is dissemination of the information from local authorities before some air alert programs emerged. So this is development of Telegram channel because, for example, such thing could not be written in like WhatsApp, and now WhatsApp is just introducing such things. So that allowed us to publish information quickly for quick consumption. Well, and people got it, so to say, like addicted. Or it's more like people got used to it, and you got used. And our project also registered on the Telegram channel. There are those who register there exclusively due to the fact because it is easy to share your content there. Do we have to fight that? We have to. Because Telegram channel is not regulated, I will be honest. It's not regulated at all. The content is not deleted. Moreover, you don't have the opportunity to write some claims. And there is like a claim, yeah? It never, I don't have that button. Yeah, maybe now such button is there, however, yeah, it's like they're saying, sorry, you're blocked. Telegram channel? Okay. I don't know. I did not use that. However, the content itself, even if you send lots of claims, the probability of block, this doesn't happen. Like, share whatever you want, like photos, like in all of those channels. Moreover, I have very negative opinion. This is Truha channel, where Budanov is commenting, and he is inviting for meeting First of all, the quality of information, that's not media, and the information which is published, that's just something horrible. It's not the true information, it's disinformation, it's propaganda, and so on and so forth. Moreover, the only way of regulating that is when a person is regulating and the person says, like, I won't use this channel, I will use official channel, or the media, even though all the media created their Telegram channels, Ukrainian Truth, Radio Freedom, and so on, Espresso, all the channels.
Well, before I came there, well, it's not important, but you've created it anyway, because it's a means of communication one way or another, but just like a normal media, you are supposed to counter it. Yeah, let's discuss this specific issue. We do discuss it inside, whether we should refuse this type of media, because they have a huge audience, but if we respond to Mr. Ojihara Takaki so that you can communicate it to him, the government should send a signal. If it's a threat to national security, the military administrations are not supposed to maintain their Telegram channels. They're not supposed to invite the representatives of those channels to the office of the president for off-regs. We should communicated that it's the spread of misinformation. We don't work with them, but unfortunately it seems to me that almost any and all communication of the official government is based in the Telegram channels. Well, we're all got a little bit agitated about Telegram. We have 3 people who want to make statements, Victoria, Maya, and Elena. Well, Oksana mentioned it properly, that Telegram is a technology and we cannot restrict the technology because we're no North Korea. Really, how can we ban Telegram? And we don't have a technical possibility to do it. Russian special services were not even able to do it because they only rely upon closing the inconvenient Telegram channels, but if we start doing it, we will make the system crash. The only thing we're doing I do it on a periodic basis, but it should be of systemic nature. You have to train your audience to discern verified information from fakes. Otherwise, we cannot fight the misinformation. We cannot restrict people's access to something. We have to debunk the fakes, we have to explain why it's so, and that's pretty much it. What I would like to add about the Telegram channels and government communication, very recently I was writing a text for the Force of Truth and the Institute of Mass Information about the way that the government communicates information through the internet for their readers. For example, a head of a military administration is very active on Telegram. They have their Telegram channel. The mayor has their Telegram channel, but he's not as active. But for what I remember, starting from the year 2022, they were becoming more active in sharing something on their Telegram channels. But one way or another, the government more communicates through Facebook. They are mostly present there. They spread the information over there quite quickly, and other social media are like secondary, but the head of Volyn military administration has a very active Telegram channel. And I would like to continue about Telegram. To continue what Maya has said, I was writing the Telegram channel of the military governor of Sumy, and we were discussing different platforms. When you get a personal message to your phone from a Telegram channel, you're seeing it, you perceive it as something personal. Other social media don't provide this opportunity. Facebook provides you a field for discussion, YouTube gives you something else, but Telegram is important even regardless of all of its misadvantages. It has a lot of pluses. Let's don't forget about the speed of dissemination of information. Let's remember the blackouts. They are right around the corner, but to open a Facebook page, with our connection, with our signal, it was not so easy. Telegram was giving us the information. First of all, it's live during the war, and then the rest of the things, well, you know, you can use the X to chop the logs and to chop the heads. So leaving Telegram just because it's bad, well, excuse me, I don't think it's a timely thing to do. My media has its Telegram channel. Well, maybe there are alternatives, maybe there is a Twitter, but with Musk, Twitter becomes a way worse story. I understand Facebook loads slowly, Telegram sends you notifications, but for example, in my case, I get notifications from my emails, WhatsApp, Signal. There's a lot of options. WhatsApp launched the channels as well recently, so probably we should ponder over this issue a little bit more. But honestly, I can say that, yeah, we know Telegram is Durov. We don't know whether he works with FSB or not. But WhatsApp, I'm not a technology journalist. I don't know who's the owner of WhatsApp. Zuckerberg. So it's a part of Meta. So yeah, there are questions to him as well about other special services. Well, there's a lot of questions. What I would like to add about the control and restriction. Banning is not a democratic method. We don't really know whether the Russians are behind Telegram. I'm no adherent of Telegram, but in case of Belarus, when there were civil commotions in year 2020, right away all of the heads of the Telegram channels were arrested because Telegram was a platform where people were able to communicate. And for example, if in our case in year 2014 it was Facebook during the Revolution of Dignity where everybody was discussing things, in their case it was Telegram, and all of those people were arrested. Some of them were able to flee, they made it out of the country. But if we need to find somebody behind the Telegram channel, it's no problem. In Ukraine as well, there were rumors that big Telegram channel leads, they were given orders not to highlight some specific information. But again, there should be a balance between democracy and censorship. And just a small statement, look, SSU has all of the contacts of all of the authors of Telegram channels, maybe more than 5,000 of them. So doing it using the Belarusian methods, well, there are no obstacles of doing just like that. We just need a command. And what about the Signal? Who's behind Signal? Signal seems to be independent. What I would like to add is I have two remarks. First, I would like to appeal to your comment. Yeah, we are supposed to have a discussion here, so let the government go. Let the normal media leave Telegram, because those channels, they will exist one way or another. This vacuum is going to be filled anyway, and thus you will just lose your audience, because they just say, well, I don't feel it convenient to read the website, and thus you lose your audience, and they will get this information just from the other sources, which may not be verified. So I think it's no way out of this situation. But what I'm impressed with and what keeps shocking me is the journalists themselves. I'm not talking about people who take information from Telegram channel, but I'm talking about the verification. When the journalists send the material, in 90% of the cases, their source is a Telegram channel. And at the same time, what's interesting, they present the Telegram channels of, for example, a mayor or a head of a municipal council, and they say, all right, we have requirements to the website and to verification of information from the government channels. It's an official channel. There is an official page. In compliance with the law, the local authorities are supposed to have their online pages. They have contacts on their page. For example, Zhytomyr Military Administration, it shows YouTube and Facebook, and they don't mention Telegram channel as a source of information. It's no source of information. On top of that, the journalists reference some government officials. I had a dispute in regard of a journalist Andreyuk. They say like it's his page, but how do you verify that that page is his? It says Andreyuk online and his picture. So basically I can create such a web page and you can do it, and they can say, and you can say that it's your resource. Is getting back to the topic investigated by Olena. I can create multiple such resources, like I can create a Telegram channel Yanitsky. Well, but for example, in TikTok, you can add the TSN and check out what is the number of TSN channels over there. So what I want to emphasize, first of all, there should be a journalist hygiene. I'm not talking about the consumers, about the citizens, but when the journalists prefer to take as a source a Telegram channel, not an official source, and then a journalist found that same information on the official page. But again, getting back to Telegram channels, who administers them? There may be a number of clones created. It's just that the journalists may get fired for publishing unverified information, and it's our duty to verify this information. The journalists don't do their job in a quality manner. This is why Telegram channel is a normal source. I explain it for the journalists. It's a normal to find the information there, but please verify it. You cannot refer to this source of information as an official one. We had many cases like that. Remember, there was this guy submitting his note of resignation. I don't remember his name, from the office of the president. Arestovich? No? No, the head of the office of the president, Bogdan, yeah, right, that was his name. So he wrote a fake application for resignation, and everybody started disseminating it. So again, we should use the hygiene. We should use the official sources, not just pages, because it's more convenient to find information over there. And on contrary, we have to, I think Victoria said it, we have to teach our audience the media literacy. So Telegram channels are all right, but we should train them in media hygiene, so it's not going to matter what resource it will be. We just have to come to it eventually. We have to walk this path, of crap to learn how to consume normal information. So we're running out of time, and our main speaker was not able to join us online. It's a military journalism, things happen there. So Miss Alona, so if you take an information from government Telegram channels and they don't have this blue tick, just ask them to edit. Let the press service to take care of this blue tick, and then put all responsibility of them. This is how we can be confident is their official source of information. I want to thank everybody. We started at 11 today, and those who came at 10:30 for welcome coffee, we started at 10:30. We covered a lot of topics, but we had to omit something about the military journalism. I think it should be a separate specific meeting. It's my pleasure to see everyone here. We will increase your presence in your professional life as IWPR. I hope you will be attending our events. We don't have Telegram channel. We used to have it, but we don't have it anymore. I've just checked it after the words of Miss Katerina that we had a Telegram channel, but we don't maintain it since March last year. Even our central office, we just have to remind them to delete the channel. We have a group, though. We have a group in WhatsApp with the graduates of the first wave, I think. So I will keep adding the graduates of the further waves to that group, so we build up our community in WhatsApp and probably other platforms. And you see, we maintain this consistency of generations. We continue working with the same people this year that we used to work with during previous years. The authors that were published during our previous projects, they continue being published under these new projects as well. We were picking the most clever ones, and we want to continue staying with you. We want to continue empowering you. If you want to be successful, as they say, surround yourself with the successful people, and this is what we're trying to do. Miss Katerina, a couple of words from you as from the head of the office of IWPR. Thank you very much. We can wrap up the record and this event.
Громкий голос даже без микрофона. Через буквально несколько минут запись будет готова. Ну, не запись будет готова, но уже можно будет выкладывать свои впечатления об ивенте. Мы опубликуем заметку также на нашем Фейсбуке, потому что там мы до сих пор на Фейсбуке.